tearing the building down?
No, we don't know. We're looking at every option at this point. You know, the community kind of dictate what what's easier.
6 years ago, there was like a hockey rink, base indoor hockey rink.
Recording in progress.
That's not happening.
Can we please stand for the salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to advise those present that notice of this regular meeting of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken has been provided to the public in accordance with provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this regular monthly March board meeting was given by publication of the annual meeting notice of the authority with amendments as necessary, was sent to the Jersey Journal and Star Ledger on Tuesday, February 28, 2023, and sent to the City Clerk of Hoboken on Tuesday, February 28, 2023, with a copy of the agenda to be posted on the aforementioned bulletin board in City Hall, Hoboken Library, and Hoboken Police Department, and posted on the authority website on Tuesday, February 28, 2023. I direct the minutes of this meeting to state that I have announced the adequate notice of this meeting has been given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act. Roll call, Director.
A. Forbes.
Present.
A. Impastato.
Here.
A. Lewitt. B. Reyes.
Here.
M. Russo.
Present.
J. Sanford.
Present.
E. Seitzman.
Aye. Present.
Commissioner Coates, can you give me the sign-up sheet?
Chair, it's 7:02. It's time to, 7:02? Okay, that's fine.
Somebody comes with.
If anybody wants to sign up, come let us know.
Adrian Rowland.
To just states.
ADRIDNE, RAWLINS. I received a complaint from a resident regarding an additional amount for back rent because of mistakes that the manager made at the time. This is over a year old. The lease is done and over with for that time period. And if there's a miscalculation, that should fall on the housing authority, not the resident. You make a mistake on the math, that's on you, that's not on the resident. I do have a 6-page, and I'm not reading all 6. In your new resident handbook that you passed around, I found a lot of them on the floor and in the trash, so no one's reading it. That should be a lease amendment so that everyone could come in, sign that they got it, you hand it to them, they know that they have to read it. But there are many things in this book that are things that I've never seen before. Screening and eviction policy, we don't do background checks yearly. Maybe you should. It's only done when the leases are first signed. You have never, that I know of, enforced the community service for the 8 hours a month. I haven't seen that done lately. Under additional keys, you may obtain additional copies of the keys from your manager for a nominal fee. What is the nominal fee? That should be stated, because not putting an amount, it's kind of shady. You should not park your vehicles on the sidewalks or lawns. You may not keep inoperable or unlicensed vehicles on the premises. You don't enforce that, and your contractors are constantly parking on the sidewalks. Therefore, they should not be on the sidewalks either. Housing has never done an incentive transfer. I don't know where you got that from. What, are you gonna pay somebody to transfer over and, you know, you'll get a big pretty apartment, and that makes no sense. Incentive transfers, never heard of them. If you own a pet, the authority reserves the right to enter your unit under a 30-minute notice. Nope, by law, you must give 24 to 48 hours notice. You cannot enter any unit unless we have proper notification. And since when does the housing authority show the unit for releasing with the resident still in it? That should be clarified. And since when do we have to ask permission to have an air conditioner? That's not in the lease, I've never seen that before. Your quiet hours are between 10 p.m. and 5:30 a.m. That, as well as your night activity policy, that policy also should be signed in as a lease addendum so that everyone has a copy, and, you know, they'll actually read it if it's in the lease. That needs to be enforced. And that's it. Come on.
Thank you.
I'm on cast.
Can I have your name?
Hi, and my mother knows about this, about the falling thing on like the back of the building that had like the nest in it, and like,
It's a cable box.
yeah.
The nest has fallen. You can now take that hanging box. It's hanging by a thread.
Yeah, me,
I'm sorry.
it's like
It's a cable box.
it's a cable box, and it's like hanging by like 2-3 threads. Me, my sister, and my 2 brothers know about it. No one did anything. And something about the rats, like I've witnessed, like when me and my sister was going to Trementers on Tuesday, I witnessed one like running across like from us. I got scared and I like stopped my sister. And I'm like, stop. And she's like, what happened? I'm like, there's just literally a rat ran across us. And she's like, okay, once it ran, we'll just run straight to it. So we both ran, well, she walked. And once we got there, we just got scared. I was scared because I'm scared of rats. And like, this really needs to be solved because I don't want no rat in my apartment. Because if there's a rat in the apartment, I'm gonna throw hands. I'm not trying to be violent, but like it needs to be, something needs to be done. Like, I'm acting nicely. Just do something. Residents are scared for their life if a rat or a mouse or a skunk is in their apartment.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Every day.
Director, I know Ms. Rollins addressed a few things that maybe we can address, such as the box hanging by a thread. I think that can be resolved. I think
That can be easily
Is that
fixed.
something that we can do, or do they have to come out and do it?
No, we can do.
Okay. And you're absolutely right, Adrian. As a resident, I agree with you that a lot of the things in that book does need to be put as an addendum in the lease, and that's what we plan on doing. We just put it out so people can look at it, and it saddens me to hear that you found a lot of them in the garbage, because then we have those same residents that come to us and say, I didn't know anything about it. So, but I can assure you that that's something that we're working on, and that when everyone is up for their lease, they will be getting those lease addendums attached to their lease.
Correct.
Am I correct, Director?
Correct, absolutely right.
Where are we at with putting these requests in the software, that management app that we're working on?
What do you want requests?
So like
From residents.
Yeah, work orders go into their, work orders, and we track them through our software.
But they
That's
still have
happening
to
now?
put it in.
Yes.
So like that was put in,
One second,
I think,
yeah.
Director, he's referring to can tenants open up a work order
No,
portal?
the
No,
portal.
the answer is
Themselves.
no.
No, we don't
They
open it
call
up
it
to the
in.
portal.
do we have that, or is that capability coming?
Well, right now, we're putting it in. We haven't come to the stage where we're having residents put in their own work orders online. Something we're working on, but it's not there yet.
Might be something you want to look at.
Yeah,
first.
sure.
Yeah. Like
Because,
a
like-
couple drop-down boxes,
Yeah.
toilet,
Right.
then is it this, is it this?
It's
Yeah.
trackable, we
Yeah.
can see where
Real
maintenance
time.
is,
Yeah.
label it as priorities.
Right. We already do that, but now it's called in and then we enter it into this, into the system and we track it from there. And what's
Now,
a
do they get a
priority?
confirmation that that part of the process has started?
No, we don't mail that out.
No, because it can be an automatic email that goes out. Just to say, hey, listen, you know, your work order has been received, yada, yada, yada. Someone will be in touch with you with the next 24, 48 hours. So now I have a document
Right.
from the housing saying, hey, in 48 hours, now here it is, you know, 102 hours later, and no one's contacted you yet.
I think that also would help us with a lot of the things that are being sent through on the resident ends, where they're saying, we're notifying individuals, we're
And no one-
notifying our
yeah,
managers,
no
we're
one's saying
notifying
anything.
maintenance.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's taken this long to happen. If we had some type of confirmation, I think it would be better for management as well as for the residents.
We can't argue with that. You want to talk about that a little bit, about where we are in that software
So
process?
the software has the capability, so it's something that we can and we're working towards implementing. What has to be set up is the infrastructure from the inside, because if right now we open up the work orders to just, unfortunately, even from our experience right now, sometimes a worker can be called in, we get there, it's not what we thought the work order was once we actually get there. So we gotta make sure that once we get it, and this is more for maintenance, from the maintenance side, that there'll be a way that, accountability for those work orders. So for example, that you can't go in there and open 10 work orders today before lunch for the same thing, or you know, those kind of like catches.
But can we kind of, I guess, split the difference and say, all right, if residents are currently calling in those work orders and we're manually putting them into the system, can we still have the system send out a confirmation email?
Only if they have an
Immediately.
email, yes. If they had an email.
Yeah, no, of course. If we don't have the email, we don't have the email.
So that is the
Well,
The next step of that is-
So can we start doing that tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean,
it wouldn't be tomorrow, but we can work on getting ready to do it as soon as possible.
We'll work on what is-
Can I ask that we get a timeline to the board so that we know what
Yeah.
that implementation would be?
So what that requires is people signing up to the portal. People can sign up to the portal. If people don't sign up to the portal, that functionality doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about it. Yeah, I agree.
yeah,
And we got two people.
but it's these forms here that
Yes.
we bring that, we bring that awareness. I think it'll alleviate a tremendous amount of he say, she say. I called on this day, check my phone, let me get my phone bill, see I was on hold for this long. So I think either way, when it's updated, even if it's updated, that it's not what you said it was, then another email should go out saying, hey, we fixed X, Y, and Z, not P, Q, and R.
So I think I take your point that you would like to see this. I get that. And I think to ask for the staff to have this lit up and happening tomorrow is a little unfair.
Yes.
I think you've got to realize that we've been rolling out this software. We're communicating to HUD with the software. We're communicating internally with the software. And as we roll out things, like we'll talk about the ACH debit later, we'll talk about other things we've been working on, but there's only so much bandwidth to make sure we get it right. And
Yeah,
how to
I
get it
don't-
right. We are rolling out our statements this month, statements to all of our residents, so we're making incremental progress. And I get you on the work order that you would like to see it lit up on our website, on the software for folks to put in online work orders. I get it. I get that you would like to see a response on that. Let us now go back and take a look at our workload, see when we can do it, and report back to you. But again, I think to say,
Well,
light it
we're
up
not,
tomorrow.
I don't think he meant literally tomorrow, but.
I
just know we've been
What he's
talking
saying
about it
is let's get it, let's not put it over here.
Right.
You know, let's tomorrow, like, let's get it moving.
And
I
we
think we're
clearly,
almost
I clearly hear you.
I think it's
Clearly
fair
hear you.
to say that since we got the software, we have been implementing new things. New
Yes.
things have been happening. And, you know, unfortunately, everything can't be done,
Right.
you know, at the same time. It takes time not only for the staff to learn the software, for everyone to be, because as much as you guys love this and want this, as a resident, I'm telling you, half of our residents will not even know how to use this. So I think we need to understand first, we have to make sure that the staff has the proper training so that they when us, the residents, are meeting with them, maybe that's something that you guys do when they're leasing up. Hey guys, you want to learn how to do this so you can do it, but it's really unfair to think that it's gonna happen overnight, and I wouldn't say it's gonna happen within the next 3 months. Honestly, that's my opinion. I don't know how quickly you guys can work on it, but
The one thing I can say is this, what I really think what you're asking for, and I think that's the best part of the idea, is how can someone know that I opened up a work order and it's open? That's really what you want. So the portal can get us there one way, but I think a faster way to get there is every work order creates a work order number. So if just the person is given that work order number, we can always trace that through the system, for now, until we get to the portal. So that's something that we can start doing right away.
So that's something
the work
that the
order number,
manager.
yeah.
Say, hey, I want to open up, okay, we get you the work order, then we give you your work order number. So at least you know, hey, like when you call anywhere, they give you, okay, what's your caller ID number, and they give you that caller ID number, right? So that we can do now, and I think that is a
That's
great
a good
idea
idea.
as far as giving people some sense of security as far as when it was open, how to be able to track it. When they call, they can say, hey, what's going on with order 3741?
Yeah.
As opposed to, oh, remember my tub or whatever. No, they just go to that number, they pull it up. So that can be something that easily within the next week or so we can
Nice.
put something
Perfect.
together that can help people. So that even needs a little
Great.
implementation because we would just have to get information to the tenants via either a flyer or something and work with maintenance. Correct.
I'm sorry, I don't know who's talking back. I'm sorry.
Speak a little louder, please.
No, sometimes we have issues even reaching out to the residents on their personal phones. We've been trying to, we're still working on the carbon monoxide detectors. Phones are not on service. They're not logged into our system to where we have the right number to get back to the resident. So, I mean, a lot of it is that when they come sign the lease, they put a good contact number that we can get back to them. Once they reach out to the manager, and if the manager sends us the email, we can respond to the email, giving her the work order when the group, and then the manager can get it sent to the resident.
What about quarterly or reminders about updating your information? And if you do it every 6 months, you'll always be in that curve that you can get a new number sooner than later.
I think the problem is the recertification. So you're not recertifying and you're not providing the right numbers, then management has no way of contacting you.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question? From the perspective of the resident, I call in, I want to get a work order. As soon as I make that call to the manager then immediately initiates that work order. While I'm on the phone, is it fast enough where I will get a work order number?
Today,
No, because they have to get it,
Right.
and then they have to get
from
it
now
back.
after we work this out, yes.
That's where,
Yes.
right, that's where I think you need to get
That's the
to.
part
That's
that-
all, yeah.
Yeah, we're still in that lag.
We're
Because
still
you,
in that lag. To
because
put
then
something in
the
place.
contact number doesn't become an issue. You have them on the
On the
phone
phone.
at that
Yeah.
point.
Right.
Okay, so I think that's where we work
And these are
towards.
some of the things, right, that like you guys really want these things, and we've been dreaming
Yeah, no, I
of these
get it.
things, and it's like, how do we get there? So, but with every push and every time that you bring us to the table with that, it puts us all on the same focus. Listen, we got the statements, and it was, obviously, we wanted the statements, your push on the statements got us to it, and that's going on. You just mentioned, Andrew, about the ACH, and we'll talk a little bit about it next, but the ACH is gonna be a big time for us to kind of see how many people, you know, right now, we have about a third of the people only that pay by check. So it would have to be folks who have a bank account that are paying by check that would be able to use the ACH. A lot of our tenants right now, unfortunately, buy money orders, which to me, it's a shame because then they're spending more money than they have to because they're paying their rent and paying the money order. But when you see the ACH, if we can get as many people's information, like that's a good grab because to enter into the ACH, A, you must be current in the rent, and B, your updated information. So we'll at least have all the folks who enter into the ACH fresh in there. Now we're doing all these other initiatives, so as we catch them, I think one of the biggest messages we can give to tenants is update the information. To your point, if it can be a continuous, just every 4 month push to like, okay, listen, people's phone numbers change, their phone breaks, they get a new line, there's a new thing, they get a new line, whatever.
Or even having a outlet on our website, update your address.
information.
Yeah,
And you can do that through the portal.
Yeah.
So the big push is going to be how do we get everybody interested and excited and motivated to sign on to the portal.
When they find out they got left out because they didn't know what was going on.
Right.
Yeah, that's.
Barbara, also for work orders, when we call it in, don't assume that I called from my bathtub and you're working on the sink or the toilet. They have to be accurate in taking notes when they're taking the resident complaint of whatever it is, and it's not always accurate.
Unfortunately, not everyone's perfect, but I get what you're saying.
No, I'm not asking for perfection, I'm asking accuracy.
No, you're right.
So,
You're right. I
you know,
agree.
because I've had that complaint as well.
Ray Rodriguez?
Just state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Ray Rodriguez, also known as Shihan. I am the karate instructor at the Hoboken Housing Authority. 13 years. I've
Just
been
state your name. Could you spell your last name?
Ray Rodriguez,
Spell your last
R-O-D-R-I-G-U-E-Z. For 13 years, I've been providing services for free for the kids, and every once in a while, somebody will donate water, or if they said that they're going to donate, I ask them to donate. I remind them. Okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. I do want to give everybody here a thank you, a really big thank you. This January, I've been approached by the #1 magazine in the world, martial art magazine in the world, they gave me 3 pages, and at the beginning, they wanted me to speak about my fighting career. I didn't want to talk about that because everybody does that. I wanted to talk about the torment that I went through when I was a kid. At first, in order for me to talk about this to you, I want you to understand where I came from. I came in the 80s and the 70s when there was a lot of gangs out there, real gangs. When there was a lot of gangs, and those gangs, I remember being told that I was going to be in a gang regardless of what I had to say. And those kids took me and whipped me until I bled. They ripped my shirt off. They did some really cool things to them, but to me it was horrifying. Long story short, being in this magazine, I was able to open up and talk about so many things. And I'm gonna come to a point, watch. One of those things I was talking about is that I remember my dad was non-existent. He was in the house, but he was non-existent. He didn't exist to me because he never taught me anything. I learned everything from the streets, okay? Everything that I thought I needed to know was taught to me by someone else other than my father. Later on in the future, all I kept hearing from my dad is I was gonna be nothing. I was gonna be a bum. I was gonna be I was a sissy, I was this, I was always complaining to my mother, and my mom was the best thing since apple pie. The best thing since apple pie. She decided to put me into boxing. Not only did I accomplish so much in boxing, I went to the Junior Olympics, I did a lot in my career. I don't want to talk about the fighting aspect of it, and I don't want to talk about fighting. But I remember the man that was training me was Carlos Espada. He was the trainer of Juan Laporte, the featherweight champion. I've had the privilege to spar with Juan Laporte, Rocky Lockridge, Boom Boom Massini. These are really big headliners. These guys, wherever they went, they were known. I was an unknown. All right, I was young. And here I am sparring with guys that, I got paid. As a kid, I got paid for this. But this is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the guy that was training me was a pedophile. That guy was a pedophile. And I found out about it. And all the kids around me found out about it too. Then I met my instructor, Shidoshi Nathan Ingram. And every time I walked by him, I walked by his karate school, he kept saying to me, come on, train with me, come and train with me. And I would say, no, for what? Another pedophile? go through the same thing again, I'll pass. I already know how to fight. I can defend myself now. All these bullies gotta worry about me. Long story short, once I started training with him, because my sister was there first, and once I started training with him, I said, wow, the things I was doing to some people was superhuman. The things I was breaking to some people was unbelievable. The things that I was doing with weapons, and now my students from the Hoboken Housing Authority are doing the same, hopefully even better than me. Because when my legacy is over, what I leave behind, none of it I'm taking with me. None of it I'm taking with me. But now I have some amazing, amazing children. My highest ranking black belt was asked to try out for the Olympic in 2020, but then COVID hit, you know, and now he's working for the city. Am I proud of all my kids? No, I'm proud of all your kids.
Thank you.
Because they've been with me for a very, very long time.
Thank you,
Okay?
we appreciate it.
So I want to thank you too. You're an amazing, amazing person, and thank you so much. You know, every time we talk, and I'm glad we talk a lot. You know, so I wanted to thank the Housing Authority and the board, you know, to allow me to be here this long. You haven't seen nothing yet.
We look forward to it.
You haven't seen nothing yet. Now we started in January the A+ initiative, where we're giving $500 to $1,000 to kids going to college. Who does that? And I'm going to continue doing more amazing things.
Thank you, Ray. We
Okay.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry I can't stay.
Patricia Waiters.
God bless you. Thank you.
I think the Sheehan also forgot to mention that this weekend is the NERP.
Yes, thank you.
The
Yes,
nurse-
this is how we're raising the funds
They're raising
to give
funds.
these kids that money for college.
Yes, so if anyone is interested, yes, it's going to be at the Boys and Girls Club.
Patricia Waiters, 1219 Willow Avenue, W-A-I-T-E-R-S, with an S like a waiter in a restaurant. Can you just, real quick, I want to protect the name on this document because it's a court document, but I want to read this in a record tonight because some confusion with, I was approached by Director Mark Recco and Frank, and also the Corporation Counsel, which isn't here tonight.
He's here, he's online.
Oh, okay. Hi, Corporation Counsel. Definitely I need you to listen too, because everybody that was in here a couple of weeks ago witnessed when you pulled me aside. But this is Patricia Waiters, and they got me listed here. See, this is Bayonne, the city of Bayonne. Her is there. Trying to see my sister. But this one is all right, it's a message that I sent in today in a hearing at 10 o'clock, a conference hearing, okay, with the Bayonne Housing Authority. Thank God the federal government was there, HUD and everybody else. I'm saying this to let you know how my own municipality refused, and I have to force my advocacy on you. They got me listed as the Hudson County Volunteer Advocate. I'm not certified, no, because a lot of attorneys get upset when I go to court and beat them. But I'm not certified. I do this out of the goodness of my heart as a volunteer, okay? I tried to share with you the thing about the rent and the PPEs and the SSH and all of that other good stuff. Now that the legislation has changed and it was lifted, it's different legislation, but you still got to go by the first original legislation, which was 2020, March 13, when the pandemic first happened, and it was deemed a state of emergency. Now, a lot of landlords want to reap benefits and got, like what we did today, this is the one through the courts, a conference and a settlement arrangement, okay, versus you going to get a consultant and put a third party in, and everybody just playing free for all, messing with this funding and this money. And I told you guys, I remember like it was yesterday, because I was talked about it after I left. You can enjoy the money now, but you better make sure you save some so your family members can come and visit you in jail, because this is nothing to play with. I'm saying that because I was accused, and it bothers me, guys. I will not give y'all false information. I always fact find. I work great with Barbara Reyes, even when you was a commissioner before your mom got sick. God bless her soul too in heaven. And you know I always work with you, Miss Reyes. You know, if it wasn't for political and politics, I would have been on this board. And they laughed at me today in court too and said, well, that's they lost. I know I would have been an asset, because it's bigger than contracts. I'm seeing the same people coming up here talking about rats. I got 16 calls about a coyote. Y'all residents call me. I'll let you listen to all 156 messages. And it's sad because you push me away and try to cause a fight and confusion. I'm not here to fight. Okay, and I know, and I wasn't even speaking on what you put number 5 on the agenda, because I don't want my time to run out. I'm wrapping it up. I'm here again for you. And I don't want to say her name because she's a tenant. A few of your managers have already met with me, because I'm telling the tenants, when they pulling them in the back, I'm going to ask them again, be careful. I need them to read. Don't be quick to sign their name on those settlements. Don't be quick to go get money orders versus the money the Fed's sending. It's a mess. So I'm opening up my heart and my hands and my time to you again, Mr. Recco. You can reach out to me. We could go over this. I think it'll be helpful for the tenants that live here, and this is why I'm doing it. I don't care if you guys don't want to be my friend. I'm going to still respect you. But I think me, you, and Frank should sit down and go over this, okay? Because I don't want no embarrassment coming in my municipality, and this one here will be very embarrassed. And I'm going to point out to you, Corporation Counsel, what you asked me about before. I'm going to point it out to you, okay? On hard copy and email, exactly what I was trying to explain to you that day. I'm not here to bash nobody or turn nobody into the feds. I don't have on wires yet, but I'm going to be okay, okay? So with that being said, I'm finished with this. And I went to HUD in the ice cold. That's why I'm really mad. Resolution to award a contract to reopen public housing waiting list for 0 bedrooms. I guess that means a studio and 1 bedrooms. You know why I want this? Because this one is for Michael Russo. Michael Russo was just appointed as a commissioner, and he mentioned something about HUD regulations and opening up waiting lists. He said, well, maybe we should do it this way. What I learned today with the feds, they are so strict. And if that judge would have said it one more time, my regulation and the legislation, they adhere to it 100%. So whatever little shenanigans you're doing, that's what I was trying to ask you. Who is the third party that authorized you to open up a waiting list? Who else you have involved other than management, which is you? Because if it's only you and Frank, you are going to be solely responsible for any issues that we have or complaints. My complaint was you opened up a list. I had half of the people that came to me from the Y, but I see they mysteriously moved in Fox Hill. You opened up a waiting list, and my daughter took number 8 on one. One of them, she took number 2. We got the original paper, and I brought it to you, Mr. Recco, and you came around with all these shenanigans to change the legislation, to change me, and thought I was going to change my mind about coming here. That was rude, disrespectful, and I was right. You can't open up a waiting list and say, okay, now I'm going to take all of these people that we picked off the waiting list and make a lottery. Because it leaves room for biasness and disrespect. Because now you see the names, you see who is who, and thank God my daughter's not waiters. And then you can discriminate. You can say, well, we can put this one back, we can take this one, we can take this one. Okay? Common sense. So no, I'm wrapping it up, so you don't have to tell Barbara because I respect her. But this is important.
We need to respect everyone, Patricia.
I respect everyone if I get it. But the minute she disrespect me and cut me off, that's rude. You gave Adrian a nice opportunity to finish up and let me finish up. So don't distract me, please. Thank you very much. Anyway, like I was saying, on your agenda here, I want to know who the contractor is you put in as the middleman to open up this waiting list. Okay? So see, let's do this professional, Mr. Recco. I'm going to ask you again like I met you 6 years ago. Let's do this professional. Because see how people get nervous like that and jump in and cut me off and try to like distract me with little shenanigans. I'm not doing it. Okay? So I'm asking you again. I'm available anytime. My number's the same. Please reach out for me. And definitely tonight, guys, if this is to open the waiting list, I vote yes. And I'm telling you, please support this because I still have documentation. My daughter's single, hard-working, no criminal record, no drug fiend, and she was number 1 on the list. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Manuel Rivera Soler. Just so you know, I did the 2 Manuel.
Just state your names on the
Manuel Rivera Soler. Madam Chair,
Yes, I'm listening, sir.
good evening, Commissioners. I'm standing today, I want to ask a few questions in regards to a few resolutions, and I would prefer and I would ask that you, in your capacity as Commissioners, if any one of you, or you can, take it upon yourselves to ask further questions about these resolutions, which you do many times, but many times you jump over them. You should ask for more information so members of the public can have a clear picture in regards to the different resolutions. First, I would like to say on 4, where it says the executive director, which does a great job, but please, the unresolved issues, can you say those at the top of the conversation? Thank you very much, sir. And Madam Chair, on resolution 2023-03, 2023-0305, 2023-0306, 2023-0308, and 2023-0309. These resolutions should be more elaborated upon because, of course, we cannot understand with just one sentence all that it implies. In one of them, which is 23-0303, you're purchasing a vehicle. Can members of the public know what type of vehicle? Why are you in need of this vehicle? Things such as this. I know that they may sound like they're not important for all the members of the public to know, but it is, because not only the people who are here present, the people who get to see this beyond today, tomorrow, the next day, who live elsewhere, because we have a city of 60 plus, give or take, 1,000 people. So they also need to get to know where is all of the information on these resolutions. But I also want to emphasize one that was mentioned before, which is 23-0308, which is the wait list, as well as 23-0309. When you pass these resolutions, which you should, these are very important, but members of the public and the public in general, like I said last meeting, they need to know the moment the list is open, where is the best place, what is the best resource, how can they get their family members or persons on these lists, whether it's on the portal for the authority, whether you need to expand it to other groups, churches. People need to know, because not everybody is aware when a list is open and might need also help to get on this list. If it's in the computer or they have to come in, it would be very helpful. And I appreciate your attention. I do know that it's a lot to take in. I hope that every person also fared well in last week's water emergency. So with that have been said, I would like to say God bless you all and God bless the residents of the Hoboken Authority. Thank you very much and good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Soler.
Madam Chair?
Yes, sure.
Can we post, I know at City Hall for your meetings, you guys post a resolution packet, right? And it explains every resolution, right? In detail? We don't do that, right?
No,
We don't
just
have
put
like
the
an
agenda.
explanation of every resolution and like what it, to Manny's point,
The packets wind up on our website.
which go into detail
Yes. So you'll get to see the packets.
after the fact.
Right, that's right.
Right before the
We don't-
meeting or after the meeting?
It's usually after the meeting.
Is there a way to post it before?
We could try. Sometimes the resolutions aren't done until
The
the
day of.
day of, so we can try our best to get them posted beforehand.
I think it'd be helpful. You know
Or
what I
you can
mean?
just post them when you're done.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Well, we do that, right?
Yeah.
Also, following up on what Mr. Soler said, when we're doing these resolutions, we do go into details. I think when I read them out, I always ask, does anybody have any questions, concerns? So the details are being said. Unfortunately, what happens is that a lot of people leave after the public portion. The information is being provided. I would just ask that if you're really interested in finding out exactly what the resolution entails and what it's about, stay for the entire meeting. And you will get that information, because I think it's always an open discussion for every resolution that
Yeah, because what ends up happening, we end up explaining it twice.
Yes.
Because if you weren't here the first time, you didn't get it, so when you come back the second time, you gotta do it again.
I think to Manny's point though, he's.
Not what I said, sir.
Yeah, so Manny, let me give it a shot here. I think what he's trying to say is if he can get if our residents can see the resolutions in detail, then they can read it, prepare questions.
Sure.
So that when they come to the public portion, they're educated on what we're about to vote on, so they can express their opinion or ask questions on what we're about to discuss. I think that's.
But isn't that after the fact?
What do you mean?
No,
Because once we bring it to a resolution, we're already discussed it.
And we send the whole resolution packet out to the board, usually a week ahead of time, and there's no reason we couldn't post that.
Yeah, that's it.
And that would solve
Solves the issue.
There's no reason
Correct.
we couldn't post that
Madam
at the same time we send it
Yes,
to you.
sure.
But some of the resolutions, which I think some people are missing, is that we don't just do things, sometimes people I understand the perception that we just do things in thin air. So maybe we need to explain the process, right? A lot of the time you're communicating with the RAD board, it has to go to a committee, and then it comes to the board. So we're getting input from the RAD board, from each other. When you sit on committees, you speak with the Security Council. When you sit on the Resident Services Committee, you're speaking to people that are here today. We're not just making a decision on thin air. You're getting the input, but I understand both sides, and maybe we're not explaining correctly the process of how it all works.
So I think we could post it before.
We'll make sure those get posted at the same time they go out.
Awesome.
And if I could add one thing,
Who is that?
That's Matt.
Okay.
Matt, were you saying something?
Oh, we can see you now.
can you hear me?
You're frozen, Matt.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Barely.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I would just want to add quickly, you do start distributing the resolution
You're breaking up, Matt.
in a
Sorry.
lot of ways,
Matt,
but
turn your
the
camera
way
off,
the
buddy.
authority set the
Maybe turn your camera off.
Text us.
You don't want to see my face anyway. All right, well, I guess you can hear me now. So my point was going to be, while I agree that it would be very beneficial to the public to have the agenda and maybe the resolutions ahead of time, a little bit unlike the city council where they have a deadline where the agenda needs to be set ahead of time, we don't necessarily have that. And sometimes because of commissioner schedules, procurement committee, maybe issues with bidders, proposers, we have things that are relatively last minute. And if you start distributing the agenda and the resolutions ahead of time, you're going to run into an issue where someone thinks there's the appearance that the housing authority is trying to slip something through when that's not the case. So that's something you'd have to weigh in terms of whether you'd set a deadline for things to be on the agenda if you're going to start distributing the actual resolutions like that.
Madam Chair, I hate to interrupt because I do not like to take extra time, but I would like to clarify my desire was to know in your agenda, like the Commissioner said pretty well, but like you have here your legal services. Who are you hiring? Who's the lawyer? What is the lawyer for? Is representing whom? And the vehicle. What vehicle? What company you're buying it for? How much is it? A few more letters out of here. You have all full authority, like the attorney said. If that changes, then you come back, you strike it from the record, you put it again, and then somebody will read it again. But I know you have deadlines, the city council has deadlines, but you, as a body, can share information. Even if it changes, even if you have to tweak it, but like, I would like to read here, oh, it's attorney so-and-so. Does that attorney may or may not have conflict of interest with anybody? Perhaps not. But these are just things that people, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I'm not here to tell you you are doing anything wrong, neither the director or anyone. It's just a member of the public asking information, not only for myself, for others, because I know other people see these meetings, and they tell me, oh, what was that in the meeting that they said this? So that, I'm sorry to take up more time, and I apologize, but I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
And I apologize, Madam Chair, for engaging in a little bit of a back and forth, but to Mr. Soller's point, I'm not advocating that you don't do that. I'm just saying that if you do make that your practice going forward, there are probably some other things you need to take into consideration in terms of timing of some of these things. Just that it should be considered as a whole, not don't do it.
We can further discuss.
Thank you. We can work out something.
While we're on, Madam Chair, one more comment. While we're on the topic of posting things, I know I made a comment about this in the past, but receiving the list of bills on the same day of the meeting is in my opinion, unacceptable.
I think that's the first time in months and months that's happened, and I do have to apologize on behalf of our CFO. He had some issues this week that where his family took precedence. So he did talk to me, and he did apologize to me for getting it out late, and I think it's the first time you've seen that in a long time. And
in a long time. It's happened before.
We will strive, since you brought it up, we haven't, and we will strive to be better next month and in the future. So we apologize for that.
Director,
yeah, I take full responsibility on that, Commissioner Sato. That was my fault, and that's why it was out late. So that is my full responsibility. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you.
Whenever you're done with the public question.
Yes, public question is closed.
Okay. We have some special guests tonight.
Okay.
And if you'll remember, as a result of the water crisis, we had to postpone the presentation by the planning group that's been hired by the city, and I've reinvited them back to address us tonight. As we all know, I believe, to develop the city's redevelopment plan, the city has hired a consultant group, hired Rule, to perform the redevelopment plan for the city. They have been in constant communication with us. I was actually on the interview group before the city hired them. And if you remember, hired Rule may sound familiar to many of us because they were involved with doing our strategic plan as well. So rather than on the 28th, when the water crisis hit, they came today. They've spent the day with us, with staff. They've toured our developments today. They have met with the RAMP board this afternoon. And I would like to introduce the hired Rule team now. And to be very specific, have them introduce themselves one by one. So many of you might remember this first guy that got on, John Berry, who's been with us and knows us well. So John, I will hand it over to you and your team for your presentation.
Can you spell the name of the company?
Sure, it's Heyer, H-E-Y-E-R, Gruel, G-R-U-E-L, and Associates, HGA for short, if you prefer. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. It's nice to see some of you again from our work over the last couple of years with the strategic plan. We do have a brief presentation. Really the purpose of our being here this evening is to introduce the rest of the team that is joining us, because we have a few different team members than we did the first time around, and talk a little bit about how we're building on the work that we did and how this process is a little different and what we're hoping to accomplish over the next several months. So, next slide, please.
Next slide.
Thank you. So my name is John Barry. I'm, as I said, from Heyer, Gruel & Associates, HGA, and we are project leads on the project with the city, and we're working on the preparation of a redevelopment plan. With me, I have folks from WRT, they're a design firm in Philadelphia, Kristen Sieber.
A couple other folks.
Wu Kim in the back, and Bea, sorry, I forget your last name, Bea. And then from Arup, we have Sherazad Mehta.
I'm sorry, from where, Arup?
Arup, yeah. Sherazad Mehta, who will be helping us out with engineering and infrastructure issues as we develop the city's redevelopment plan. And then from Executech, we have Lou Riccio, who has many decades of experience as in public housing authority work, as an executive director of housing authorities. So we have a nice, well-rounded team, similar to last time, some different folks involved, but looking to build on the work that we've already done. Next slide, please. So really what we have here, we have the strategic plan that would represent the vision, the culmination of a year and a half or so of work with the Housing Authority and its residents that was adopted by this board back in April 2022. And we've moved forward into this exciting next step where now we have the City Council has designated an area in need of redevelopment, authorized the preparation of a redevelopment plan, which will put into place the legal standards, the zoning requirements that will allow for the project to move forward through the city's process, which is a very important step. And really it represents a step that we haven't, the Housing Authority has not reached in recent history. So, and all of this work that's gone on over the number of years to work on repositioning, to work on redevelopment, we're further down the line now. So we really want to stress that we're breaking new ground, we're moving forward, and we have what I hope is a good and fruitful collaboration between Housing Authority, the city, and we have this moving forward as a partnership with everybody engaged. Next slide, please. So we're going to talk, during the planning process, it's going to be covering some of the same ground that we talked about, the infrastructure, the size and shape of buildings, the different unit mix, some of the financing issues, phasing, which we understand is a major factor in how this all comes together. Can you jump to the next slide, please? Thanks. And during the process, we're going to be continuing the outreach that we started. Today represents the first big step in that. We met with the Resident Advisory Board this afternoon. We had a very nice conversation, shared some lunch, and we're able to just rekindle the connection that we had from the strategic plan process and explain a little bit how we're going to continue and move forward. We have this evening meeting with everyone here. Next week, hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to have a chat with the subcommittee of the City Council. And then the following week, on March 22nd, we're going to be getting together for a public meeting over at Monroe Tower, 221 Jackson, to begin this engagement again at a broader scale. Next slide, please. So we understand all of the issues that went into that vision, all of the challenges inherent in public housing, inherent in redevelopment, unique and specific to Hoboken, the infrastructure challenges, the flooding challenges, the idea of how are we going to redevelop these properties, what changes are we going to make, what should they look like, how big should they be, all of those different things. And the way the April of last year when we had the adopted vision plan, there were some open-ended questions. And what we're going to work toward over the next 4 or 5 months is to get some more resolution to those questions, looking at some different options, and rather than come in and say, here's an idea, here are several ideas, and maybe we can pick and choose some elements from each of them, and hopefully come up with a strategy that allows the city and the Housing Authority to move forward in a partnership. Next slide, please. So like I said, the outreach is going to be a major part of this. We want to make sure that every Housing Authority resident that wants to participate has an opportunity to do so. We're going to have the on-site in-person meetings. We're going to offer a survey that in some ways will mimic the outreach that we do during the meetings so that folks who can attend, aren't comfortable attending, whatever the situation may be, there's different avenues for them to participate in that way. And this process will also be open to the city as a whole. This is the Housing Authority's buildings. The residents' voices are certainly front and center and most important, but the city has a major seat at the table, and any resident of the city that would like to come out and share their thoughts and ideas is more than welcome. Next slide, please. So we're right up front at the beginning of this process. Part of our team's commitment and in working with the city is that this is going to move quickly. We understand that it's been a long time to get to this point. It's been several years, and everybody, I think, is really anxious and ready to move to the next step. We have this process that is necessary to bring the city into the fold, get the redevelopment plan on the books. So we have the March 22nd meeting, as I said, over at Monroe, 221 Jackson Street. It's going to be 6 p.m. And from there, after that meeting, we're going to spend some time working through these different scenarios that I talked about. And then we'll be back again sometime during the summer to review those scenarios with everyone, talk about strengths and weaknesses, pros and cons, how you give a little here, you take a little there, and what it all means, and how we decide to prioritize those trade-offs. And then hopefully right around the end of the summer, beginning of the fall, we're going to be moving toward the adoption of the redevelopment plan process with the city. So it's going to be a fast and aggressive process. That's by design, because we've done a lot of talking and we really want to get moving, right? So with that, I'm going to pass things over to my colleague here, Kristen, to talk through some of the ideas that came up during the process. We won't belabor them too much because it's things you've heard before, but we just want to get a sense if anything significant has changed from the Housing Authority Board's perspective. And so we set the stage well for the discussion with everyone in 2 weeks' time.
Just have your name. Kristen, K-R-I-S-T-E-N, Z-E-R-T. Hi everyone, I'm Kristen Zieber from WRT. We're located in Philadelphia. We're an urban design and planning firm. We're really happy to be here and to join Higher Goals team. Would you go to the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So most of what I wanted to talk with you all tonight are things that you told us, and I'm telling them back to you and checking in and saying, are these still accurate? Are these still things that are the core guiding principles? Because this is what came out of the strategic plan. And as we start to actually develop the urban design and redevelopment scenarios for what can happen on the Housing Authority's properties, some of these things we want to know, are these still fixed? Or are these things that are malleable? Are these things that we can start to adjust a little bit? So like John said, the output of this will be 3 different scenarios. They're really, a lot of them are about how high should the buildings be, how many units should go first, what's the phasing, some of the logistical questions about who and how that are going to be really important for everyone moving forward, and they take physical form. So the combination of the programmatic, the logistics, and the actual physical redevelopment of the buildings. So, putting my architect hat on, some of the considerations that we're looking at here, some of the principles that we're looking at, or that we heard from you, we really want to make sure that we know which of these are fixed and which of these, there's some play in them, and we can start to adjust them. So I'm going to repeat them back to you, and then we'll have a little bit of a discussion where I'm going to hear from you about what's changed, like John said, and which of these are still really core guiding principles that are not to be changed as we start moving into developing urban design and architectural scenarios for you. So,
Could you just slow down a little
oh,
bit?
I'm so
You're
sorry. Yeah,
flying. I got over 280 words a minute.
I'll slow down a little bit. Okay. So the first one that we've heard, and that I have not heard anyone say anything against this yet, this is very core and important foundational principle, 1-for-1 replacement. That at minimum, we are going to be replacing every single unit that is on the Housing Authority properties, and that's replacement or renovation. I know some of the properties are already under renovation. So mostly this is about the units, the remaining units that are not slated for renovation. 1-for-1 replacement. We know that that's a really important principle. The most important principle. Yeah, it's number 1. That's what we've heard so far. So I'm going to go through these, and then we'll have a little bit of a discussion at the end. So number 2, equally important. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. No displacement. Anyone that's a current HHA resident has the right and authority to remain as an HHA resident. No displacement of current HHA residents. So those are the 2 that I've heard as, this is our twin cornerstones, and these are not changing. So that's already what I've heard from you. Repeating them back to you. Number 3. Can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So we understand also that there are some folks that are maybe overhoused or underhoused based on their current family size. So as we're thinking about replacing each unit, we do have a little bit of wiggle room to match what's best for the families that we have here now. So as we're rebuilding, that apartment size or bedroom mix, can be adjusted to meet current household sizes. So we have that flexibility, and we really want to make sure that the people who are living in our units now, that they have units that match their current family configuration. Okay, next. Okay, so at minimum, the redevelopment plan needs to replace or repair all 1,354 units. And again, I say repair or replace because we know about 200 of those are already earmarked for repair. But the replacement is the remaining 1,150, around that.
No maximum unit count has been established. And so here again is where, looking at the sites as an architect, what does that mean for us? What does that mean in terms of, are we looking at adding more units? If so, how many, when, in what phase? Some of those questions are where we start to ask you all, what are you seeing for this? What is, there isn't a maximum unit count, but what does that mean? What's the ballpark? Is it keep it as it is? Is it, doubling the units? We have some height on the sites, so let's talk about that. Okay, next. This is getting a little bit more into logistics. The first phase building, located at the northern parking area of Harrison Gardens, this is what has been identified in the strategic plan as the first phase, should be 6 stories. So ground floor parking, we know we can't build there because of the floodplain. Upper 5 stories residential. Later phases may be taller than that, and we believe that this is reflecting the context across the street. A lot of the other construction across the block right now is that 6-story height. Does that height limit hold for you all? Is that first phase something that you feel really strongly should remain at 6 stories? So the bottom to this is the building heights may vary in later phases up to that upper height limit set by the Palisades. So that's maybe from 6 stories to that height limit, which is about 110. There's some wiggle room in there. So again, I'm looking at you and asking for guidance about what you think we should be doing with that. And the benefit of doing 3 scenarios is that we're going to show you some alternatives, but I would love for you to give me some guidance on the front end of that. Okay, next slide. And this is the last one I wanted to go over, which is the early phases should house only existing residents. Mixing incomes, adding non-HHA residential units could be allowed in later phases, and those later phases need some flexibility because we're not sure yet. We just don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future on that, but we want to try to get the first phase really correct with you all. So I'm going to pause now. I think the next slide is just teeing up the discussion. Yes, which of these are fixed, which are more flexible? What else should we be considering as we're moving forward into some of these urban design and architectural configurations of these sites? So,
want me to start?
Sure.
So from my perspective, and I think I spoke about this in great detail during the first portion of this plan, the strategic plan. For me, I think that first building is going to be crucial in the timing of the overall plan. So to keep that at a fixed 6 stories, I think is a lost opportunity for our residents. I think we should most certainly consider a taller building so that we can vacate some of the other buildings and do a faster project in the sense of doing multiple buildings at once. I used the example during the strategic plan discussion of having enough of a new building to house all of CCG and some of our main campus units. That then gives us 2 sites that we could actually potentially start to build together, which then would cut down the overall plan drastically in its timeline. I think having the number of units staying a 1-for-1 only, I think a bare minimum is that. I think we are losing an extreme opportunity to house a lot of our residents who are begging. They come to us on a daily basis and begging us to do splits because those children are now of age where they could have their own units. They're in their upper teens, early 20s, and now they are in need of housing. If I remember correctly, the last time we opened up our waiting list, one for one of our senior buildings, we hit 5,000 applicants. For our housing units, we hit 4,000 applicants. That's 9,000 total. So to say we only have 1,300 or 1,400 units that we're going to replace is, I think, a very, very bad move. I think it's a major lost opportunity. I think we should consider at a minimum doubling our numbers. I think that's where we stand. I think, and of course, having the amenities that we talked about, right? Our residents deserve to have the amenities that every other resident in the city of Hoboken has. Community rooms, an annex for our library, In discussions I've had with the hospital, they would love to come down to the Housing Authority and have a clinic right on our property. These are the things that I think our residents should have, deserve to have, and if I have any say, will have. So that's where I stand on the whole thing. And I know we've had tons of discussions about keeping it a 1-to-1 ratio, keeping it at the lower levels of housing our residents. I think we're losing a major opportunity if we do that. So I'm in the camp of really pushing the boundaries here and trying to get as many units as we possibly can.
But Mike, you're saying like, but they still have to go through the proper channels in order. All right. Okay.
Yeah, all of that.
I just don't want to misunderstand.
No, all of that still pertains to the process, right?
All right.
What I'm saying is, if we have the ability to build 3,000 units, because we know we have more than 3,000 applicants every time we open up our waiting list, we should go and build 3,000 units. And if we, through the development process at the city's level, have the ability to go to 10 stories or 12 stories, I think we at the city level should also consider that to make sure that we have the proper envelope so that we as a housing authority can make our own decisions as to what would be put into that envelope.
I wrote down 10 stories when you went through the height, so I'm a 10-story fan. I think we can house more folks as we build out. 6 stories pretty much keeps us at a slower pace.
Yes.
On the overall picture.
And just to add to the conversation about height and density in these buildings, you know, when these buildings, our current buildings were built, they were built a certain way. Those standards are very different, as you well know. Yes. So we most certainly have the ability to address some of the concerns of safety, of cleanliness. All those things are now addressed in the way we build buildings, not just because of the height and the density of those buildings. And depending on how we kind of structure this, having a mixed use in those buildings or a mixed level of those units also contributes to that conversation. So I'll get off my soapbox and I'll let everybody else get involved in the conversation, but thank you.
Madam Chair, so I am not against, I think biggest concern before was trying to build the first one, be good neighbors, try to get it, not have any stumbling blocks. So if we could get 8, 10, I don't think, 6, 8, 10, whatever, it's not such a big deal as long as the neighborhood is going to, we need the housing, right? There's no question that we need a lot of housing. I use it all the time. I do not want to become Jersey's Journal Square where you see these big monstrosities. That's not my game. But of course you need more housing. If we could do it, we would be missing out because the need is so high. But how do we become good neighbors how do we, and this is the process, we work together. First you have to make sure that your residents are taken care of. So this is why we have a one-for-one replacement. We can't say it enough times. No displacement as long as you recertify. That's why everybody has to recertify. And also, how do we make sure that no one's going to be happy all the time, right? Everybody wants going to be the first one, I want to move, why didn't you pick me, blah, 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 blah. But looking at it holistically, maybe mixed use does make sense. But also, we have to think now the economy is changing. So when we went this in 2020, pricing was one thing. Now look at it now. So are we going to be in trouble because we spent hours and hours at the plan coming up with ideas, working with you guys very closely. The numbers, I'm sure, are ridiculous now. So we also have to have that information and get some of the financials, because we can't say this is what we want and all of a sudden they say we can't pay for it and then it goes nowhere, because that would be ridiculous. So is there a way we could sort of all work together? Because I think we all want the same thing. I think, okay, are we going to fight over 9 or 10 or 8? I don't think the semantics it makes sense, is what we're going to sit here and fight over 8 or 9 or 10. Really is how we're going to sit here and work together, use our resources and pay for it.
I think that also goes to the phasing, right? Like each building is kind of going to be looked at, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm no expert in it, but I've been doing this long enough to know that the phasing of that is really going to dictate how we fund it, right? So each of those individual, I would say, buildings or groups of buildings is going to be a different phase, and we've talked about that in the strategic plan. And the funding and the money we're spending on each of those is just gonna come into play as we go along. So 6 years from now, when we're talking about the last phase of this project, right, because we're talking about 6 years, we'll be done in 6. So, but the point is that costs in 6 years are gonna be very different than they are when we start our first build. So, well, this will be a constant conversation throughout the whole thing.
I'm confused about, if you could just go over the process here, because there's been so many different planners and different groups, and I don't know if the residents are confused, but I'm kind of confused because we went over the guiding principles and went over everything, and everything was set, we voted on it, we approved it, and I feel like we're like going back again now. And I know this am I right to say this is now the city has hired this?
Correct.
So we have our planner that we've already approved, right? Is that?
Our strategic plan has been approved.
Okay,
Now
so
we get more in detail, and you might want to take that. Why is the redevelopment plan necessary from the city's perspective? I think that's what you're asking.
Yeah, and
why are we here?
That's a great question.
It is.
And the process that we went through, we don't want to duplicate all of that, right? But we wanted to make sure that we started kind of from the last quarter of that to reaffirm what we heard. The reason why we're doing this again, in a way, is because the city needs to adopt a redevelopment plan to put in place the zoning standards, the legal mechanism that controls what gets built where, how big it is, and all of those things. Because right now, the zoning that's on the books for these properties wouldn't allow them to be built the way they are today, or any other meaningful way in the future. So the city needs to, in effect, change its rules for these properties through this redevelopment plan process. So we're picking up from that end point of the strategic plan, where we talked about all the guiding principles. We got to a point where we had some things open-ended right at the end. And the hope, though, is with this scenario project that we're going to undertake over the next few months, is we're going to come in with a few different alternatives. We're going to talk about these issues, a number of units, height of buildings, and phasing. I think those three things are the biggest open issues. A lot of the other stuff that we've already been over is what it is. We all know about the flooding issues we need to deal with. We know about the infrastructure issues we need to deal with. Those things are more or less fixed. It's these other kind of moving points, talk about different options, different scenarios, and then end up with something that the city council can adopt as the redevelopment plan for the area to set those rules in place. Then the housing authority can go get with the developers, get the projects through the regulatory process, get those approvals, and get the building done. But without the redevelopment plan in place, you can't go through the city's process to get the buildings approved. So that's really, it's this next step. In some ways, it is going back over the same old ground, but we want to take it one step further and build on what we did before.
Hi, if I need to chime in.
Sure. Commissioner Sanford.
Yes, I just want to go on public record to make sure it's known that there isn't a unanimous feeling that we should go to 10 stories. The original plan, the original principles were for 6-story buildings, and now we are not even just wiggling or even mission creep going up to 10 stories for all of our buildings and doubling our stock. That's not what we originally discussed. And if there's going to be a discussion about it, you know, you came to this meeting saying you want our feedback. Well, I'm letting you know that there's not uniform agreement on going to 10 stories. I believe in the original plan of 6 stories.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Who pays you guys?
The contract we have now is with the city of Hoboken.
Okay. But
don't worry, I'm watching.
Yeah. the city can't, through this redevelopment plan, structure things that we don't agree on. Is that right or wrong?
By all means. Wait, you want me to put my council hat on? Okay, by all means, please.
So ultimately,
Excuse me just 1 minute. Could you please quiet down over there? I'm trying to make a record here.
Sorry, just tell them not to say nothing stupid like that. Sorry.
so Commissioner, I don't know, might have been me. Commissioner, at the end of the day, the city council is going to be the body that adopts this plan. they're going to have the final say. During the course of this process, we're here first with the Housing Authority Board, with the Housing Authority residents. We're having the meeting in 2 weeks, Housing Authority, home base, you know, we're structuring this so that the Housing Authority remains front and center. And we are working directly with the city and their staff, and they are on board with that approach. So we want this to be eyes wide open for everybody throughout the process, so that when it gets to the city council, nobody's going to pull the rug out, nobody's going to change, that we all see it coming along the way, and then we're not going to present something to you and then present something different to them. That's not what we're looking to do here, right? At the end of the day, the city council has to adopt the plan. It's not going to be your say finally. It's going to be, you know, your colleague, Commissioner Councilman Russo here, and his cohorts. But you know,
so if we say, let's example, we agree on 10 floors, it then can go to the city council and they can say, no, we don't approve that.
It's feasible, but we hope that this process is done in such a way that we don't end up with that outcome.
Yeah, and if I could just add, you know, you have, is Councilman Ramos still here?
Yeah, here.
Yeah, so you have Councilman Ramos in the room, and he's been a fierce advocate of this housing authority since his existence in Hoboken politics, right? And Ruben, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but the reality is he always lets the community guide the conversation. And if this housing authority wants to do something very specific, I know factually that he will be there along with myself to make sure that the city is well aware of that, and we will advocate for that until our dying breath. And the city, on top of that, has been very, very cooperative about how we're approaching this, what we as an authority would like to see, and I would be shocked if the administration would veer significantly from what this authority would like to see. Now, we have council members, all individual members will have one individual vote, and I've seen things happen at council meetings that I never thought would, and then I've seen things at council meetings that went through where I thought it would be a fight, right? But the reality is I think everyone is very aware of what we're trying to do. I think they're aware of what the overall goal is, and I think ultimately when it comes to the city council's vote on a redevelopment plan, I think it's important for our residents, our commissioners, and the staff at the Housing Authority to make sure they're at that meeting, to make sure that the city council is fully aware that this is what we would like. And we expect our representatives in the city of Hoboken to follow through with that. So I'm not that concerned. I think we're going to be okay.
Yeah, I guess where my question is, where is the final vote to send it?
Yeah, it will be at the city council. The city council will have the ultimate say as to what the redevelopment plan will be, and then ultimately the redevelopment agreement, right? So there's multiple phases to this, and again, it's second nature to me because I've dealt with it so many times at the city level. But once we have a redevelopment plan, right, then the city council will have a redevelopment agreement with the individual development partners. And that will get down to the nitty-gritty of what each building and what each phase will be. We could get as specific as talking about the color of the brick, right? So again, I don't think we're going down that road from the city's perspective because we want the process to be led by the housing authority. So we're really talking more about what is this envelope that the city is going to allow, and then the residents of the authority, front and center, and then the residents citywide will have that conversation, and that's what will really drive the process.
So can you explain the process so people understand payment? Because even though the city has the last say, the city's not paying, or the city's...
We are paying.
Wait, no, they're paying for the redevelopment, but the agreement, but they're not paying for the redevelopment.
Oh, no, not at all.
So I think that's where people might get some confusion.
If I could just jump in?
Yeah, please.
Can I have your name?
Ruben, R-U-B-E-N, Ramos, 4th Ward Councilman. I think the ultimate guiding principle has to go back to like point 1, right, is 1,300, what's the number?
54.
54 total units.
and the director and I have this conversation on every other day basis, is the current conditions of those 1,354 units currently are very, very poor, right? And there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, right? We're putting gum where we need like an open heart surgeon, right? So the faster that we could get those residents into better housing, that's the plan that we have to advocate for. And if that's 8 stories, 9 stories, and 10 stories, that's the plan that we have to advocate for our city council colleagues to do. As Commissioner Seitzman said, that's the plan that we have to advocate for our neighbors to do, and understand that their quality of life will improve on Madison Street when the residents' quality of life improves on Harrison Street. And making that correlation is a preeminent factor as we move forward. It's about us as a city council, which I've been trying to do, us as a commissioner, we're going to those neighborhoods saying, how do you benefit from this, right? Because everyone does things when they benefit from it, right? So you said your quality of life improves when their quality of life improves. They'll understand that. Whether that's 8, 9, or 10 stories. How do we get these residents into better housing? And maybe we show those residents in the neighborhood the pictures that I show Director Recco when I go into a resident's apartment, or what their conditions are like, right? How they're unlivable currently, and right? It's the buildings are 70, 80 years old. We know people that redo their kitchens in 6 years, right? These buildings have to be redone in 70 plus years, right? They need to be redone. And I think as we work together through that project, everyone needs to understand that. If we have to do a slideshow and certain the current conditions of the unit, I think people will be like, what the hell's going on here, right? After I see it, when I get it, right, I run to Director Recco right away, so please.
That's not a bad idea if we have to.
Right?
Well, well, that's kind of where I'm getting, like.
But that's where we have to work
think,
together.
In my opinion, it doesn't seem like, I could be wrong, but you selling it makes sense. I don't know if the planner is going to be able to elaborate and sell it the way you just did. So, like, are you speaking at the community meeting?
No, I'm here.
Are
right?
you part, who's
we're all part of it.
Who's part of that process to get the planner?
Listen,
when
Wait.
If I could just finish my point.
Wait, hang on. Hang on. You can't have you talking at the same time.
I'll go. Okay. And Councilor Russo knows this too, right? If you're getting 300 residents at a Hoboken City Council meeting, right? What are those council members going to do? Vote no? What do you do? If we get residents from Madison Street go, you know what, I support my person living in Harrison Street, you want to get them better housing. City Council's going to vote no. So it's about us getting that support to go to a council meeting and say, listen, we're in favor of this plan. And I've been doing everything I can, my newsletters, talking to people constantly about it. So that's where this needs to go. Right? And hopefully we get there.
I'm also concerned that it could be the opposite, where residents don't want 10 floors, and you get 300 residents.
Can he just finish?
Yeah, I got it.
The residents are like, we don't want this in our neighborhood. So now the council people are like, oh. So we collectively have to help you. Get
you have a commissioner. Sorry.
Just not have an interruption.
I'm sorry. You city council interrupt me all the time. Sorry. It's what we do.
I think we're on the same.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Listen, you have a commissioner currently saying there's 110 stories. We have to convince him too.
I will be urging my colleagues to vote no, and I will be urging the city council to vote no on 10-story buildings.
And we will hopefully ignore
this
you.
presentation that's been given.
But thank you for your time, everyone.
I don't understand that. I understand you just said you don't want to pull the rug out from underneath, but I already felt like the rug just got pulled out underneath for me.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I'll just say one thing, which is that we don't have to decide the question of the height tonight. The whole point of this
I didn't think we did.
Thank you. So we'll be coming back. We'll be coming back to you all with a couple of different alternatives, and it's really up to you all to tell us. So one of them might be 6 stories, one of them might be 10, and one of them might be somewhere in the middle, and we'll show the pros and cons and the phasing and the different alternatives to all of them. So we don't have to sell one vision yet, and we don't have to decide this tonight. So I just wanted to introduce ourselves and the process. And it sounds like a lot of these principles are still holding and some of them are not. And again, I think the whole point of us coming back with some options is to talk through the pros and cons of each of those.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, my last comment.
Sorry about that.
Before the questions I was going to ask was the only thing I was going to say to what everybody else said I agree with, except for Commissioner Sanford, was that with the options, I think it's very important to Erica's point that we include the financial ramifications. Right? We can't just go 10 floors if it's the maintenance of it is going to cost too much, or we can't have top end sub-zero ovens, right, and fridges if we can't afford it. Right. So it's important that we have the financial, the timing, the phasing, all that has to be under consideration, because we don't want to be in financial woes for the rest of the history of our association.
And it's a very complicated process.
Yeah.
You've got HUD involved, you've got the city involved, you've got us involved, you've got what we can do financially. We, of course, are going to be listening to the residents, we're going to be listening to Commissioner Sanford, Commissioner Rizzo, so we're putting this together. And in direct answer to your question on who presents this and how does it come together, I think that's the very reason that we need that strong collaboration. Because we need to collaborate with the city collaborates with us, with the residents, with this board. And I think that's the real answer on who does it, is we need to come through this with a unified voice, just as we did with the strategic plan. And because we may think it's the best thing since the world to do 10 stories, but do the finances work? We haven't answered that yet, but we will be answering those questions as we go down this. Does HUD buy into this? Will they fund us for this? All of those questions need to be answered. We need to put that pot together, and we're well on the way. I mean, and the work we did on the strategic plan answered a ton of questions. Now we're going to answer the next level of questions and get closer. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you, Derek.
You know you did all this, right? You started all of this.
We started, we're happy we did.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank
It's lovely to see you and hope to see everybody on the
Some of these folks came from out of town, so I think if you wish.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Any final comments on this?
The one question I have, I think I asked this last time we talked, but can we see the original timeline that I think Tori Gallus prepared for us? I was always curious to kind of compare that to where we're at now.
Yeah. I think they did a timeline on the strategic plan. I'm not sure they did a timeline on the rest, but we'll take a look, whatever they produce.
Yeah, I thought it was, okay.
The good part is that HUD is asking us to speed the timeline as well, which is nice, which goes to Councilman Ramos' point of trying to house our residents in new housing as fast as possible with the best outcomes, right? So that's kind of where we are, and I think everyone is on that team to speak. Whether you agree on height or density, I think everyone wants to get our residents into new housing, comfortable housing, safe housing, as fast as humanly possible to make sure that it's at the level we need it to be.
You can send that out tomorrow.
Yes. So I think later, as we get further down the road, because this is the complicated part, because I sat through when we picked Higher Grove in 2020, when we picked the strategic plan, the team that was helping us strategic plan, there's a lot of information on financials. Like, you almost have to go to like grad school to understand how we're going to do this. So I think as we go further, we could explain that process in public meetings so people understand. So it's not like the city's paying, it's a lot of, because it's a very, very, I mean, I think I must have read the thing 45 times and I still was like, because tax credits A, B, I mean, there's so many different options and keep the rules and the laws keep changing.
I think that's our goal, though, Director, correct?
Of course.
Is to educate everyone?
Absolutely, and we'll continue to do it. And one of the things I think John and Lou Riccio and I had a conversation earlier today of everyone's frustration. We understand this takes time. There are regulations, there are city regulations that cause the redevelopment plan. We would all like to turn around and break ground tomorrow and have that building built. But we've got so many players, we need to do it right or this thing will implode. because we've experienced that before where we tried to do it fast and it didn't work. So we need to check those boxes. We know residents and folks, it's frustrating because it seems that it's taking forever, but it's part of the process. And to do this right, we have to go through that process. We have to make this happen. We are moving, in many ways, we're moving quickly, but I know from the outside, sometimes you look in and say, man, it's taking them forever, but we are actually moving as quickly as possible. And I think HUD sees that, our board sees that, the council sees that. We are moving as quickly as possible. It's just not me saying it. It's around the corner that's saying it, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And now you get the pleasure of my executive director's report.
The abbreviated.
Yeah, like real abbreviated.
Then you're gonna complain that he didn't tell you it.
Like Gong Show abbreviated.
That's a good one.
The director's like, maybe they should be on.
Right.
I love talking to you though, Director, real talk.
So I'll try my best at that, I promise. Water emergency, great job by everyone involved, right? Great job by all.
Very.
Thanks to the city, thanks to our staff. Our boiler guys, Greg and Louis, they should be mentioned specifically. They kept your heat on through all of this. They nursed it through all of this. They were 24/7, so thank you, folks. Very proud of our Black History Month celebrations, our Hall of Fame celebration for our great folks, Tyrone Huggins, Leo Colon, and LaTrenda Ross. Just a great evening, a great celebration, and our Black History Dinner on February 24th. Just a tremendous event. Thank you to staff. Corinne, Richmond, and Danny, as usual, led the charge on those, and they did a great job. Save the date, March 18th.
Is the Hall of Fame just a one-time event?
No.
Or can we build on it?
We are building on it. And
can we go back to past?
We are open.
Present?
We sure can. No. We will be having it on a regular basis. Commissioner will be having it on a regular basis. I'm not going to commit to you every 3 months, but it'll be pretty close to that. And we are taking nominations. If you know somebody that grew up at the Hoboken Housing Authority that's gone on to great things, whether they're a great plumber, a great electrician, a great teacher, or a great policeman, a great lawyer, and you can get us in contact with them, we'd like to invite them. Because we do see this going on a regular basis, and I can see that big Hall of Fame wall over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very motivating. I think it gives us a sense of pride and honor. For some of us are BNRs from Margaret Hayes right to 400 Marshall Drive for 30 years. You know, so there's a lot of guys that I came through that era that are doing great things in the city, in the state, in the county. And it would be nice to have a designated area that we can have all the awards and stuff. That's nice. I like it.
We're starting with our Hall of Fame wall at our office. We hope we outgrow it over time, but we're starting at our office.
Excuse me just 1 minute. Can I please have the talking stopping, please, so I can do my job?
So we're starting in the lobby in our office. We're going to have the pictures of the first 3 up there, and then we'll be adding to those over time. So we're excited about it, and I agree with you. We've got people on the national level that have come out of the Hoboken Housing Authority that are doing great things, and so we're going to keep it going.
Philadelphia Eagle came out of the project.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, can I just say one thing? I will just add a comment. I thought the event was one of the best events I've been to not at the housing in Hoboken, New Jersey. I mean, Corinne, you did a fantastic job. Your story was amazing, inspiring. I found myself getting choked up listening to your story and the others. It was motivating, it was inspiring. I want and make sure that we can get more youth there, because if I'm, like, they have to be motivated by that.
Yes.
And it's very important to see local residents see success and for the kids to get behind it. So kudos to you. Fantastic job.
Great job at the start. March 18th, we're going to be dedicating the horseshoe area of Marshall Drive to Kiowa. So we've been working with the family, and we're looking at an event there at 3 p.m. You're going to see notices come out on that, but the family is interested and excited, and we'll all be out there on the 18th of March. That's a week from Saturday at 3 p.m. We did meet with the security committee. You've got the request for proposals in front of you as a resolution tonight. Of course, folks, we still have folks that may come in over the course of the year, but these are the folks that are going to be funded by us and have those reserved spots for us, met through the Resident Services Committee. I am working on the defensible space concept behind our property that abuts the light rail. Our additional lighting is coming in with prices right now through the CDBG grant. And we're going to be holding some policy training sessions as we go into summer with the HPD. That came out of our security committee meeting the other day as well. I do have a round of director meetings coming up. I'll be at every site over the next week or so to do our regular meet and greet meetings with our residents. Pretty much you've heard about Hoboken Housing Forward tonight. That's what these folks were all about. So I'll be quick and jump right on over that one. We've got our new newsletter coming out in April, so if anyone's got any items they'd particularly like to see, we are working on our purchasing policy as well. The Fox Hill Gardens project is continuing. Housing for Hoboken will be meeting on February 21st. Our special capital projects continue. We are beginning design on the special money we got for Harrison with the architects. Our laundry room equipment will be starting April 1st, our new laundry room equipment. So that's coming. We've done our due diligence with those, so they're going to start with that equipment soon. Our new boiler system at Monroe is under design. We are on design on camera system upgrades. The emergency generator work is finally in process. If you'll remember, they were waiting for the emergency generators to be available. They finally came in, so we're going to be starting that as spring comes. We are doing our annual inspections coming up over the next few weeks. So what residents are going to see is their notice for their regular annual inspections. We will be in every single unit in the Housing Authority. We are also, during those inspections, doing for our staff a pre-REACT inspection, which we'll be reporting on and triaging with the staff, hopefully improve our REACT scores. You've got proposals in front of you tonight. You also, I included in your report, our staff goals and objectives that the staff has been working on since January for 2023. We are going to publish those officially in about a week, but I would like the board, if you see something in there that you would like expanded on or see something we've missed, feel free to email me, contact me, but I think it's a pretty good comprehensive listing for administration of what we want to achieve in 2023 at the Housing Authority. I'm very proud of the staff for coming up with this. We are continuing at a 96% occupancy rate. Great job by management and maintenance. That's a lot of great work. We had a slow month in February, only 7 total move-ins, 3 move-outs. So we're on the plus side, and 2 transfers. In Fox Hill, we didn't have any move-outs at all in Fox Hill. We're continuing our progress on reduction in tenant accounts receivables. We're going to be having letters going out to residents who owe us anywhere from $0 to $9,999 coming soon. I do want to mention that there was a lot of community conversation regarding housing choice vouchers over the past month. There was some stuff on social media, etc. DCA put out their invite lists for their housing choice voucher. And I think a lot of people out in the community got confused that why is the Housing Authority putting out vouchers when they've said they don't have vouchers? Well, that came from DCA, the Department of Community Affairs, not from the Housing Authority. So again, you get some folks coming on saying, what's the Housing Authority doing? They're not administrating it correctly, but what's not understood is we do not have control of the state DCA voucher program.
Question.
Yes.
So, if you're homeless, does that put you at the front of the line?
No.
With a housing, with a voucher?
Not from the Housing Authority.
Maybe DCA.
Maybe DCA has a special
that's the question I'm asking. From a DCA perspective, if I'm homeless, do I get preference with a housing choice voucher?
I believe they do.
I think they do. Yeah, I think they do.
They have programs specifically for the homeless where they give them vouchers.
So again, I would like to encourage anyone who's got questions on that, encourage your folks on social media and stuff to come in and see us. We'll answer those questions rather than folks getting on talking to each other. So again, I'd just like to say I continue to encourage folks to come in and ask questions about those. But I wanted to be very clear that what was published this past month and made a lot of stirring out there was not from the Hoboken Housing Authority. It was from the Department of Community Affairs. We continue to accept building maintenance worker and part and full-time mechanic applications. We are going out for a 4-month cycle of floor stripping and waxing. We have been performing deep disinfection and painting of all of our compactor rooms. Really do got to single out Joe Marrero, who is our BMW supervisor. I think he's been doing a bang-up job out there, and I think you can see it in our buildings. They're not perfect, but my goodness, I think there's a difference these days. Our maintenance plumbing projects, we had 12 major projects. And I want to say this again. This isn't just regular maintenance. These are capital improvement type where they're opening walls, replacing pipes, and Sammy and his crew are just do a great job out there. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, and it's work that we're not really funded for from HUD. We're funded for maintenance. We're not funded for this type of work. And our buildings that are so old, we have to do it, we do it. But it's chasing that whack-a-mole job. We also did 4 special unit repair projects through a contractor this past month, Jackie's supervision. Essentially brand new renovated bathrooms for those 4 residents. Our panic bar is on the gate at Mama Johnson Field. So we're completely finished with that. Thank you, Sammy, for making that happen. If it snows, we're ready. We continue to focus on our extermination and rodent control. And that came up earlier. We continue to work on the rodent control throughout the Housing Authority. We're spending significant time closing up holes at our locations. When we have holes on the inside of any of our buildings, gaining access to our buildings, we're closing those up permanently with cement. We continue to go through our basement areas where the rodents come in, closing those up so they don't get into our buildings permanently when we can. When gravel, when not possible, because we're not allowed to cement in the holes on the outside. We keep coming back, putting gravels in, because those skunks are a protected species. I am reaching out to some animal control contractors to see if we can get them in to do animal control. We have understood that we've seen a wild animal running around back, whether it was a fox or a coyote. They're back there. We're looking to get a company in to try to trap that animal and get rid of them, as well as our skunks. We've installed additional dumpsters this month, so the dumpsters don't overflow. There's additional dumpsters at our locations. We've installed additional trash cans, so our trash cans don't get overflowing. We've also got a substantial increase in the number of bait stations on the outside of our buildings and treatments in our basement areas. We are also removing any equipment that might be a nesting area for rodents. But I also want to say again, this is a Hoboken problem. It's not just us, right? So I think some of you have even sent me some pictures of outside their personal properties. I mean, it's through Hoboken. And we are working on it hard to deal with these.
Just a quick update, at our next city council meeting, we're actually approving another contract or extension of the contract for erosion control. So you're absolutely right, Director, this is not a housing authority issue, it is a citywide issue, and we're trying to do as much as we can. So we'll continue to do that, and we'll do that here at the housing authority, we'll do that here in the city. And anybody else have any suggestions, let me know, because whatever will work, will work.
We're all struggling. We're all struggling.
Yeah, I saw a coyote.
Well, we let
Like 2
that
weeks
loose
ago.
for the rat.
No, this was
No,
on-
I'm only kidding, everyone.
This was on
Only a
8th.
joke.
Where did you saw it at 8th and
It was
Hudson?
on 8th and Hudson, right on the corner. I came out of St. Matthew's Trinity, and I looked, and I came out right on the corner. I'm like, wow, what is that? So as I go approach it, he runs up to Stevens.
Yeah.
The kids in the housing
Yeah.
authority were chasing it the other day. Yes, they were.
I'm thinking it's the same one.
That might be.
It's the same one in the city, yeah. Yeah, it's a little one, yeah. It's a little one. Yeah, it's a little one, yeah.
Yeah.
I got out of somebody's apartment.
I do have a kind of a major announcement for the residents that are still here. We're going to be sending out for the first time monthly statements this month. So you will all be getting a monthly statement. Our goal is to have that statement to you by the 25th of the month in your mailbox. That statement will say to you that as of the 15th of the month, these are all the charges that you owe the housing authority. This is your rent, these are any maintenance charges, these are any repayment agreements that you may have entered into with us. So when you pay your rent on the 1st of the month, you will have the statement, you will know exactly what you owe us, and if there's any issues with that, you can come and see your manager and work that out. This is going to be the first month you will see that, okay? But that is coming to you by the end of this month. So please take a look at it, tell us if there's any issues with it, come and see your manager, or come and see us down in central office. But this is something we've been working on and we're rolling out this month. A ton of work, we're real proud of it, I can't wait to see it, because I think it's really gonna help. Now, one thing you gotta remember, folks, is that our cutoff date is the 15th of the month. So if you had something that you made a payment on the 17th, it's not gonna show up. It's gonna show up in the next month, right? So if you paid it on the 17th, it's gonna show up on the next month. Thank you, sir. So we're glad you announced that.
Just to add to that, Mr. Ricco, like, so for example, like on March 15th, we're gonna post the charges, but that's gonna include anything that's in arrears along with what's due on April 1st.
Right. Anything that we see that you owe the housing authority will be on that statement.
Along with what's due on April 1st.
Right. You may.
I think we had a question from one of the residents, and I think I've seen it some on Chatter, some chatter about it. Doesn't have to be today, just at another time, another meeting. I think we have to explain, not our rules, federal government rules of people have to pay 30% of income. So for example, if it happened in the past, if I thought, things change, it's not against anybody. So if I was working during COVID and I thought I was gonna make X, and all of a sudden I made more or less, the government knows and spits out a report, and then we have to go and fix that. So I think that's where some of the chatter is coming, and there's the people who don't understand the process are saying that you're doing something that's illegal, but really the government is telling us we have to collect 30% of.
Thank you, Commissioner. And let me try to put it this way: that according to federal law, residents must pay 30% of their income for rent and utilities when they live in public and assisted housing. Now that means if there was a mistake a year ago, you have to pay that 30% of your income. If it was discovered that you were making more money than was declared, yes, we must go back. It's not our decision, it's a requirement by the federal government that that money is owed, if you will, to the federal government, that we must collect that money. So the idea that if one of our staff, and maybe it happened, maybe one of our staff made a mistake 2 years ago and we discover that, yes, we have to go back and say, you still owe us that money. We don't have the power to forgive that by law. Right? It's not great. It's not great news all the time, but it's true. If you didn't come in 2 years ago and say you had that side job and it comes out on a report to us, you've got to go back. Emil, how are we doing on direct debit payments? I know you're almost there. You've been working with both of our banking institutions.
So we are good with the banking institutions. Now the process begins where we need to make sure that a consent form is signed by all of our residents, allowing us to do this. And then we need to get notices, and potentially we're going to include that with the statements. So on the back of the statements, we could have a notice, and then potentially in the April newsletter, we can include this saying, "This is happening. Sign up, please."
So we're hoping we can roll this out in April, right, Emil?
No, I don't believe that's realistic. I think that it's more along the lines of June or July, because we've got to get all of our residents to sign up for this.
We don't need all the residents though, do we? It's just the residents that are going to participate.
Sure.
Right.
So that's why whoever is going to participate, they're going to need, but we need those consent forms signed by each of our residents in order to accomplish this. Then we have to upload these consent forms into our software system, and then they can initiate the ACH.
Okay. I think Emma was just hoping that everyone would.
Everyone was, right.
That would be amazing.
If someone consents tomorrow, they can start doing it.
We're working with two banking institutions. The banks are on board. Now it's a matter of getting our residents to sign up for it.
So the Commissioner Piscato asked me a question asking that if they were to sign up tomorrow, we could start in April. Now that's not true, right?
If they were to sign up for it tomorrow, then yeah, we can start, absolutely. And we can do just a rollout. Absolutely, that's not an issue. But I think that the first step is going to be this consent form needs to get signed off on by legal, and then we need to start informing the residents that this has happened.
Right. So if we send the consent forms out in April and they start coming back in April, we can start signing some people up.
Yeah. Good. So then we just need to get it implemented and uploaded into our PHA web, and it can start right away. We need to be clear on is it coming out of tenants' accounts on the 5th of the month, or is it coming out on the 10th of the month, that type of thing. Is it coming out on the 1st?
Yes.
So I think we need to, but we are on board. Both of the banking institutions will accommodate this. That's not going to be an issue there. The PHA web software has the capacity to do it, and now it's just making sure that people sign up.
Thank you so much, Emil. So we're making progress. Thank you so much, Emil. Mr. Daniel, you want to hit any highlights on resident services for us?
Yes, fairly quickly, right? I wonder if
You got your coat on, so it has to be real quick.
So before you is the program providers resolution. We have a diversity of programs which increases choice for our parents. Of course, we have Amazing True Society coming back with self-defense. But we have a new provider this year, Team Wilderness, which is going to give our kids the opportunity to get to know the outdoors, get out of Hoboken, go hiking, go kayaking. So we're very excited about this new provider, and we're hoping that you look at this resolution and pass it tonight.
That's it. Thank you.
Oh, way to go.
Right?
Do we have an updated what is owed and what has been paid from,
So our
Frank
TR right now, we have 117 contracts. Actually, today Patty, she's not here unfortunately.
I'm sorry, do you have a printed?
I don't have a printed one. I don't have a printed one.
We just try every month to get a printed report, so we have it on file. Thanks. Can you just send it out tomorrow?
So I think that's my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Before we move on to resolutions, I just wanted to take time to thank everyone during, especially the staff. Director, I know you were here during the situation with the water. You were here till wee hours of the night trying to make sure that we had heat, although we didn't have water. I want to thank the City Council, Michael, Emily, and the entire City Council, who we were going back and forth, and our Councilman Ruben Ramos, who was instrumental. All these people were and Director Ferranti, who were very instrumental in making sure that the housing authority had the water that we needed.
Absolutely.
And luckily, through those conversations, we were able to get it not only at one site, we were able to get it at other sites. So I just feel like we need to thank you guys for that, because it was a hard time. I had people say this was worse than Sandy.
Wow.
They'd rather have no electricity than no water. So it was hard. And you know, when you have kids, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank the efforts of everyone involved. And thank you, Director Frank, Sammy. Maintenance was amazing. You guys were amazing. So thank you. I also wanted to speak on the issue that was brought up about the vouchers and about the wait list, which is a constant thing going on here on social media from our residents. And I'm a resident here, and I have a lot of these residents who are my friends, and my page is public, so I see a lot of things. And I just want to say that as a resident, I have full confidence in the administration that we have here at the Housing Authority. I trust that the director, that Frank, and everyone involved is doing what they're supposed to be doing. And all I can say to my residents, my fellow residents and neighbors is, if you feel that something is not being done correctly or illegally, you have the right to go to the prosecutors. If you have the information and the evidence that you state you have, we are open to it. I would gladly, I don't think anybody would be against it. So with that being said, I just wanted to address it, and I just wanted to let everybody know that I know I, as the chairwoman, have full confidence in you guys, the administration. I think everybody here may feel the same way. I don't want to speak for everyone else, but for me personally, and I want to thank you guys. So I just feel it's really unfair sometimes, the stuff we hear on social media. So.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I appreciate that much. And I'll say again, my office door is open. If somebody has a complaint, or particularly if you've got any evidence that my staff is doing something wrong, please bring it to me, bring it to the board, or take a step elsewhere.
To the police department.
But rumor and innuendo is just not enough.
And and not only that, it can damage someone's reputation. And that's not fair, because people work hard for what they have. And your reputation is sometimes all you may have. And when it's ruined, it's really hard for you to get back. So I take it personally. I just wanted you guys to know that. So
thank you.
Madam Chair,
sure.
If I can, I just want to add to your statement, and I appreciate the thanks during the water main break. But I think it's a testament to the director, the staff here at the Housing Authority, and the commissioners. When we as a city were there to help, there was someone on the other end to receive. So a lot of times when we get to crisis situations like that, and we're trying to get water to residents in some of the private buildings, that took hours upon hours to get to just a contact. So to have everybody available and ready to work and ready to do what they needed to do to protect our residents, I think the thanks is absolutely reciprocal, to make sure that the city thanks all of you, not only the staff, but the commissioners as well. And I think it's important, and on behalf of the city I'll most certainly put that council hat back on just to say thank you all, to make sure our residents are safe, so it's appreciated.
Well, thank you and the staff. You don't know how hard they work.
Director, I don't know if I should speak on this now or later, but it's come to my attention this afternoon, and it pertains to our field. I don't know if we can discuss it now, or
Sure.
would you like to? So, as you all know, Grace Church uses our field every year for our Easter egg hunt, which benefits the kids of the housing authority. The majority, that's not to say it's not open to the city, but the majority of the kids that go there are there. So it was brought to my attention that the city is charging them $4,000 to use our field.
Come again?
Now, this was brought, again, a few hours before the meeting. My concern is this. It's our field, right? It's the housing authority field. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but they were told that. And my concern is, where are those $4,000 going? Because they're not going to our residents, so. Sorry,
I
Councilman.
will find out, as a matter of fact, I'm
And,
already texting someone, so I will find out, and that should not be the case.
Unless it was for security or something else, but there's no reason why the city should be charging.
Did
for
they
our
charge in the
field.
past?
No,
Never.
we changed our policy when it comes to our properties. So there's a hierarchy, and I think I mentioned it at our last meeting, where the housing authority is now second only to the city. So if there's a city-held event in any of our own properties, that takes precedent. The second in that line of succession is the housing authority, and then
So
third
you
is the
wanna have
school
events.
system. So there was a change there. So let me find out what's going on there, because that, I agree with you,
It's
Madam
concerning.
Chair, it shouldn't be happening. And if it is, I think we need to rectify that immediately. But I don't have all the information in front of me, so I don't want to speak to it, but I most certainly will try to
Thank
find
you.
out.
If you could look into that and
Be glad
then come
to.
back to
Yeah, sure.
all of us.
Madam
Director.
Chair, may I ask a question fast? So does that mean it's making it easier, so we have an amazing program that we want to bring, say we want to bring the Winter Wonderland into the gym? So
Absolutely.
Is it going to be a lot easier for us to come to you and
Absolutely.
say, hey, but we might have to kick out somebody else?
Then, yes.
No one freezes.
Yes. If, for example, if there was a for-profit entity trying to rent the gym at the same time that we wanted to use it as a housing authority event, we would take precedent over that entity. And again, there's a hierarchy, right? So it's City of Hoboken, Housing Authority, school system, then there's nonprofits, Hoboken-based nonprofits, outside of Hoboken nonprofits, for-profits, and then outside of Hoboken for-profits. So that's the hierarchy and how we're doing that with city-owned property. And again, with our own property here at the Housing Authority, we could set whatever policy we'd like, but when it comes to city-owned property, yes, we wanted to do an event on Pure A Park, absolutely. We wanted to do an event at a gym, absolutely. We are number 2 in that line.
I just want to say, Grace Church does a lot for our residents. They do, throughout the entire year. So I really feel like it's unfair if this is the case. But again, I don't know all
Yeah,
the details. It
I will
was
try
given
to
to me
find
right
out.
before the meeting. I said I would address it and ask here. And since you're here and the director is here, I think this is.
But you're not giving it to us, they're giving it to the city.
The city's requesting it. It came from the new director of recreation.
Director Gonzalez or the head of recreation, Jessica? The director, okay, so I'll speak to Director Gonzalez.
She might not know.
Could be.
I would always speak to Chris Hyde too. He's more than welcome.
Again, neither of us have heard of this before. so-
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get to the bottom of it, one way or the other.
Thank you. Is that it?
No, we actually have to vote on things now.
I know. I had to bring it up because I know you guys want to run out of here. So, are we ready for resolutions?
Absolutely.
Resolution 2023-0301, resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to approve the meeting minutes for February 9, 2023, regular board meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, concerns? Call the vote.
A. Forbes,
Yes.
A. Impastato.
Yes.
A. Lewitt. B. Reyes.
Yes.
M. Russo.
Aye.
J. Sanford.
No.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
Resolution number 2023-0302, resolution authorizing the payment of the monthly list of bills for the Hoboken Housing Authority.
Motion.
Second. Questions, concerns?
I have a question.
Sure.
The number 11 under monthly contractual expenses, can you just give us an idea of the security guards, what hours that payment is for? That would be helpful for...
Jump on it, Frank.
That would be more Emerald.
Emerald?
Emma, you with us?
So they work 8 hours a day at all 3 sites. So what are we at? 56 hours.
That's one security guard?
No, so there's one security guard at all 3 sites. So Adams, Monroe, and Fox Hills. They work from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. So cumulatively in 1 week, they're working 56 hours. And so their total contract is about $240,000. So that's why we're seeing about $20,000 for the month.
So just run me through it here. So one security guard, 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. How many hours is that?
8 p.m. to 4 a.m. So it's 56 hours, right?
What's 56?
He's totaling that for everybody.
8 p.m. to 4 a.m. is 8 hours.
But he's timing
8
that
hours.
over.
8 hours times 3 times 5.
Yeah.
Times 7.
Times 7.
Times 7, yeah.
So how many hours, what's the hourly rate that we're paying the security guard for this $18,000?
I can pull that up. Just give me a minute. They bid on a flat fee. So that contract was approved for approximately $240,000. So we're at
That's for everybody. 240?
Yes. It's $240,000 was the contract value. And times 3 times 736. And if I did a rough number of 240,000. So we're paying about $27, $28 per hour for each hour worked.
27?
He said about.
Yeah.
Because I thought when we approved it, it was like 18 an hour.
Well, there's probably an administrative fee on top of it, right? So there's the management, the scheduling, all that stuff. So the company's making money. We're not just paying the salary, right? So you gotta account for what that is.
That's kind of what I'm getting.
Yeah. No, I understand where you're going. That's why I said it.
The proof of the pudding is what Emma's got for the contract.
Yeah. So this amount we were happy with this month.
So this is actually the second vendor. We had an issue with the first vendor when we started to procure the services, and we terminated the contract. They weren't complying. They weren't getting security guards there. So then we went back out to bid, and so their prices have increased. Like this company had put in the past, but they were not the low bidder at the time.
Emma, I think what he's asking is, yes, that's an amended amount. We went through the cameras to see their schedule.
We talked about the other
And we did reduce their payment because of it. They're actually fighting us back. They were going back and forth. But this is an amended amount. I don't know if this is the one Emma or if this is the other person, but we did go through their hours and we chopped.
So they amended, that adjustment was made last month in the February list of bills, and then they are contesting the adjustment. But Frank's been very diligent, looking at cameras. We have been getting daily reports from this contractor to make sure that when they say they're at 8 p.m., they're there at 8 p.m.
So for this amount, we're comfortable that we went through the cameras and they've worked when they said they weren't sleeping on the job.
Yes, we've gone through.
What's
A hesitation keeps us another half hour. I'm just letting you know that.
No, we continue to work with everybody. I feel that they have certainly, and I'm going to continue to tighten that. You know, like even as we saw the security guard here today, he came in even as we were here. I saw him do his rounds again. There are still things I still want to see some improvement, but they are physically now there in the building in the days that they say. And those days that we chopped up, they billed for something that I didn't see people on the camera. So on this, I see somebody showing up at that time. Now what I have are reports every single day of every scan point for the building with pictures attached. So for any shift that we have, that we're paying for, we have where they were in that shift for those 8 hours. So I can tell them at 10 o'clock he was here, at 11 o'clock he was here. We checked the cameras to see that he came in, that they left, that we checked out. That was kind of like in the beginning, that's what they were doing. They were cutting a little bit at the end. You know, they were maybe showing up on time. That has gotten better.
Okay, here's the question for you.
Yes.
If this was your house and you were paying $18,000 and the security company, you had a vote, your family had a vote for it, are you comfortable looking back at the work this month that they showed up for every hour and were securing our buildings to the full capacity, and you would write a check for $18,000?
The answer is no.
I'm
not ever satisfied. What I'm saying is this. I can tell you that they are showing up, and I can tell you that, can they be better? Yes. I don't think shorting them right now is the right thing. I think if I see them, if they're not there on the camera, I think that we shouldn't pay for someone to do that. I can't really honestly yet tell you that I'm 100% comfortable with what they're doing every single day for each guard, because they're going through a lot of guards. Because as we're catching them, they're firing the guard, and they're hiring the guard, and then it has to be trained. So as we're working with guys, and as some of the guards are sticking around, it's going to get better. So I think they have room for improvement. I think that we should approve the bills. I think that they did show up. Would I still give them an A plus? No. I still think that we're working towards getting it.
I want to say.
And I don't think we can short them for it. I think that the quality, what you're asking me is, that are they an 18? I don't think they're an 18 yet. But my goal is that we can get them. Somehow I would give them a B plus right now. I think when they started out, they were a C. And I think that we're making improvement. And then as we continue to see these things, and we can continue to work with them, we can get a better product out of them and help them grow so that we get what we want. And at that point, I think we would be more willing to say, yes, I give them an A for the performance.
Are there incentives into the contract where if we see on cameras that they're sleeping, or they get a percentage off, or?
It's not an incentive. We take the hours off. Yeah, we see this.
You do?
Yes.
This month, did we take off hours?
This month there were no hours. It was the
Yes.
What he said?
Yeah, we did take off hours. They adjusted. So if a guard was running a half an hour late, they had reduced it.
They did it this month. Last month they submitted the whole thing. This month they self-submitted the hours that they were late.
Oh, so the self-reporting at that point.
We didn't have to take it away from them. They did it themselves, which is already an improvement. Because the last month they said, oh, we were there for 40 hours for each guard, and we were like, no, you weren't. We saw the camera. So this time they came back and said, oh, this guard was late 15 minutes. This guard was late half an hour. They deducted it, and then that's what they said.
Okay. So is this something we do every month, review the cameras?
It has to happen every week, or else we can't. So that's why, unfortunately, it has become an extra task for the managers, for myself, but it's worth at the end because, listen, we're starting to see some of the benefits.
Most importantly, I think we hired them, so, and I don't think people are maliciously trying to do it, but, and you also come, so.
I just want to say that during our dinner, the director and I were sitting together over at Monroe Gardens, and I can't even count how many residents, seniors came up to us and thanked us about the guards, and we're very happy with the guards. I mean, specifically there, again, I don't know about the other buildings, but the residents at 221 were happy with the guards that were there. That night, they came up to us and told us, so I'm glad to hear that they're.
And I think we've seen that across the board. Now, I think if you ask Frank or I, is every minute, do we watch the camera every minute? No, we can't. It's impossible. It's just impossible to watch.
It sounds like Frank has a system, he's on it.
But he is.
I want him to, that question I want him to answer every month, yes.
Yes.
And it sounds like you're working with them, it's a lot of money, right? In our organization, we need to watch every penny we spend, and we have to hold them accountable. And I know there's legal parts to this, we have contracts in place, so we can't just short contracts. But it sounds like you're on top.
Maybe part of the good news is we are arguing with them. We've shorted them last month, and we're arguing with them about it, which is good, which is what we should be doing, which is what the staff.
Correct.
This is the way we see it. Sorry, we're not paying you for this. They're coming back and saying, well, this is why the guy walked around back and was like, no, show us. So we're actually monitoring that contract.
Yeah, because we would hate to have to back into a situation and explain ourselves.
Of course.
An unfortunate incident.
Yeah.
And we've instituted protocols. For example, they're required to do tours three times during that 8-hour shift, and they're providing us pictures of each of the floors.
Yeah. Is it possible for us to put, in some buildings they have where security guards go and they turn something and it registers that they hit that floor at that time?
Well, they're sending pictures.
The company put the QR code.
Oh, okay,
in
all right.
different parts of the building. They have to go with their phone
Yeah,
and scan
okay,
it,
all right,
and that's what.
Nice, perfect.
So that was something that they didn't have when they first started. So they were able to adapt to us.
It's not really foolproof, but it's okay.
No. There's always.
Because I could take a picture of it with
Correct.
one phone and scan it with another phone. And still be sitting wherever I'm sitting.
He knows the trick.
Yeah, so I'm just saying. Listen, you guys know what I do for a living, so I'm just letting you know. I've seen it all. I'm not watching it.
You better hope they're not watching, man.
We now include that.
Change out all the QR codes immediately.
Change a weekly is a different story.
Thanks, Commissioner Ford. Director Kenny.
A. Forbes.
Yes.
A. Impastato.
Yes.
A. Lewitt B. Reyes.
Yes.
M. Russo.
Aye.
J. Sanford.
No.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
Resolution number 2023-0303, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to purchase a utility vehicle and accessories.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, concerns? Would you like?
Can we just go through?
Yeah.
What's the vehicle?
The vehicle is actually a Kubota.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, this is Sammy.
Who's that talking?
Come on up,
Sam.
Sam.
Sorry, Sammy.
It's okay, it's okay. Sammy from FBRMANC. So the Kubota that we're purchasing, it's actually an all-terrain vehicle. We already have one previous. So we were looking for the Ford vans. Can't come up because the prices were great, sky high. Emil brought it to the report last time. So Emil was able to track a Kubota down, which is better with us on fuel, and it's also compacted, so it's less we'll be paying for fuel and getting us the transportation where we need to go. We don't need F-250s. We're local. We already have sufficient vehicles on site.
What's the use for this?
Actually, you can use it for everything, repairs, snow detail. On a day-to-day basis, the city uses them a lot.
So you can put a plow on it?
We can put a plow on it. You purchase the salt spreader. We have the 250, the salt dog, which is much bigger, and the Kubota is more compact. So now it's more compact. We can get to certain areas without having to actually physically load the salt by hand, which that's going to help us out as well. We won't need to have two people in a vehicle. We just pour it in the machine and get going with a snow detail. So the price on it, I'm going to probably touch base more on regards to that part.
Electric?
It's actually diesel, so it lasts longer than our 250s, the 350s running on gas. I honestly think it's better for us because having these big trucks and then taking parkings and having them double parked on the streets, driving around with big clouds, we can actually get on sidewalks without damaging all that extra weight, and you do need to get on the sidewalks. So, I mean, that's the only way I requested, the only reason why I would request for another Kubota.
Is this, do we look at used ones, or is this a new one?
So used ones, I don't know if I'm going to look for used ones. Emo, I don't know if you want to speak in regards to this part?
No, we did not look at used ones. This is procured through a cooperative purchasing agreement, and we're getting close to $6,000 off of the sticker price on it. It does have that salt spreader that Sammy mentioned that's gonna, be very beneficial in the winter time. We've purchased one of these vehicles in the past in 2017, and overall maintenance-wise, Sammy can speak to it better than I, but we've had minimal to no issues with that Kubota. I've seen the city drives around with them for garbage purposes, so it seemed like a good investment.
So is this of necessity? Like your job needs this Kubota?
Yes. Well, I mean,
or does it help you?
It helps, and it also saves a lot more money because there's less in maintenance fees. You don't have to take the Kubotas to service every 3 months like you would normally have to take a truck. The windshield wipers, tires, it's all terrain. You don't have to go through tires, flats. I mean,
my last question.
It's something that we can do in-house that we don't have to actually send to a mechanic shop to take care of.
Does it take offline a old truck that we've been maintaining and spending a fortune on?
It can. It can. I mean, we can actually get rid of one of the old trucks that's taken a lot of maintenance and putting money into it. Puts it aside and just
that would be my recommendation, and I would feel more comfortable spending the money if it was taking one of those old.
Oh, absolutely.
Gas guzzling, maintenance.
Was that the goal? I'm sorry. Was that the goal to get it?
I mean, it was either that or purchase another van, which now it'll service us as we did purchase a Ford cargo van, so which our locksmiths in-house would normally need it. Now, one of their trucks, we've been dumping money into that truck because this is everyday riding. Our locksmiths are driving around, so we can flip-flop it and put that one to the side and not have to worry about purchasing maintenance on it.
What is the amount of money that we saved from this winter not having the snow that we didn't have? Because maybe this could
You want to jinx it, right? Well, I don't have that figure for you, but it does come from a different budget. I mean, one of the great values of us purchasing rather than leasing, for example, that conversation, is that we can take this out of our capital fund money. And the snow detail comes out of our operating fund money. So I don't have that figure on the tip of my fingers on how much we saved. Again, one of those questions that we could look at when you come up with a surprise question. I don't have it in my pocket on how much we saved because we didn't get much snow. But I can tell you that purchasing a vehicle like this over the long term not only makes us more efficient, has Sammy crew go out rather than having to worry about their vehicles and how they're going to get a vehicle, and is this guy going to have to walk with a shopping cart all the way across our development. But it's also a very efficient way for our folks to get around. Again, I don't have that figure, and as you might be able to imagine, I don't walk around with the figure on how much money we've saved this winter. We can certainly look back at last year and try to estimate how much overtime we did last year on snow and how much we did this year. But again, it comes out of a separate budget, not our operating budget that the snow detail comes from, but it comes from our capital fund budget, which can fund vehicles for us. I personally don't believe that buying a used vehicle for a purpose like this is very cost effective, because you can buy a lot of problems with a used vehicle. And I don't want my staff taking their time fixing the vehicle and having that vehicle down when we need the vehicle. I think our best option is to get a new vehicle and move forward with that.
But it's also not cost effective still dealing with the old vehicles. So if we're going to purchase a new one, then let's just push the old ones out ASAP.
When we can and when we don't need it. Because we're under vehicle.
Yeah, that's...
We are under vehicle.
With all the issues
and our
that
guys hitch rides with each other. Our guys walk across our developments because we don't have the vehicles that are running to help them. And we've tried to get vehicles before and I've been stopped. And, I mean, we need to take a look at our
honestly
vehicles.
seen
They
our
need to be
maintenance.
replenished.
I've honestly seen our maintenance come to apartments with shopping carts with their stuff in it. Like they pick it up at 221 and then they'll roll it over.
No, it's also,
So-
it's also
so the family knows
safety
it, so.
reasons, pushing, pulling. I mean, that help us out. And also just because it doesn't snow, when we do get the alert that inclement weather's gonna come down, we still have to pre-treat. So which it prevents from our residents slipping and falling on our steps. So we still have to mobilize and still have to, you know, discharge calcium fluoride and also do our parking lots. So, I mean, being said, with that Kubota in hand, aside from the other Kubota, plus the 250, I mean, it's just an add-on that we don't have to worry about people pushing shopping carts with 120-pound bags inside of it.
What's the size of it?
The size is actually paperwork. I think it's actually in front of you, if I'm not mistaken. So we previously have one. I don't know the size of it. So it's previously in there. 2 people can sit in the cab, so it's a 2-person cab.
So it's like a big golf cart type thing?
It's not a golf cart, it's actually a golf cart on steroids.
Golf cart on steroids.
Yeah, the city started using them.
Yeah, they purchased a few of them.
This is my thing, right? We have to be lean, right? And I know you know this.
Right.
And we've talked about this, especially when it comes to trucks.
Right.
But if you came to the meeting tonight and you sold us that, okay, we've got a 1993 Ford pickup that is bleeding money every month in maintenance, and we're going to take that now offline and we're going to replace it with this Kubota, and it's going to save us money in the long run, right? Then you said, hey, we're saving money here and we're doing this, and now I feel more comfortable, right? To approve it.
I agree.
And I know I'm one vote, but in the past, I think I've stayed pretty consistent when it comes to trucks.
And I think I've stayed consistent with saying that our staff has been under-vehicled, that we've asked for vehicles before and we've been denied. We've been pretty consistent in saying that our staff has to do things like walk when they shouldn't. And when our maintenance direction comes saying that we need this vehicle in order to operate efficiently, whether we take that old one or off, that old one may sit for a while and be used periodically and not be used as much or not have that I think that we're obligated to run this place efficiently. And what we're saying as staff is we need this vehicle. And if you want a one-to-one replacement, freeze the number of vehicles we have now, never get one more or one less. I think that's irrational. To me, if we see a need that we need to have something to keep our operation running when our pipes are getting significantly worse, our boiler systems are getting significantly worse, and we're getting better at replacing them. And if Sammy and Jackie come to me and say, we need this in order to effectively fix our units, I'm not always going to go to them and say, well, what are you going to get rid of if I give you this? What they're saying is they can run much more efficiently if they have this type of vehicle. And as Sammy said, they first looked at, they came to me with the idea of another pickup. We looked at the pickups and they were extraordinarily expensive this year. We don't get a deal like we used to on those pickups. So we took a look at this vehicle and said, this one really works for us. We talked to our boiler guys, they were like, yes, absolutely. We'd like this vehicle as well. So we decided to push this.
Director, can I ask a question?
Sure.
If we kind of looked at the entire fleet in totality, would it be a conversation for us to have, would it be smart for us to have, to replace all of those larger vehicles with vehicles of this type, where the entire fleet then becomes these smaller maintenance vehicles? They get around our campus as quickly as possible, efficiently as possible, and again, cost of maintenance, the cost of fuel, the cost of the vehicle itself is all reduced. Does that, in the long term, look better for us as far as our maintenance cost versus the capital costs as you touched upon. So I'm getting to a point to say, is it smarter for us to take those other vehicles offline and purchase more than one of these vehicles?
You need a mix.
Okay.
You need a mix. Because when you have to move those 2 refrigerators at one time, or when you have to move something large, when our trash truck has to move around and pick up trash, this vehicle doesn't work for that.
Right.
Right, it doesn't work for those specific things. So when we have to snowplow our streets, this vehicle doesn't work for the street. It works well for the sidewalks, and it's going to save us a lot of money on the sidewalks, but it doesn't work well for this. So when we take a look at our maintenance operation, we want to diversify.
Yeah.
We want different types of vehicles for different things.
Yeah, I absolutely understand.
Now, having said to your point, though, I think if we move more in this direction, yes. Yes, I think moving more in this direction, we're seeing that it pays some benefits, but not to replace everything.
Right, right. Can I ask for you and the staff to kind of compile just like a motor pool report of what our vehicles are, what that looks like, and the want, right? Not just the need, but the want, right? Like how many vehicles do we want? How many vehicles? What types of vehicles those are?
Sure.
And what that overall goal might be, and then of course drop that down to the absolute need. Like what is the bare minimum that we need to kind of function at our full capacity?
Yeah, we have our list, and we can expand on that very easily.
Yeah, I think it goes to the point of trying to understand how our staff is working and what vehicles they really need.
Right.
And it then gives us the opportunity to say, all right, we see, right, this is what it is. So when you do come to us and say, well, we need 6 new ones, we go, no, that doesn't make sense, right? But if you come to us and say, we do need 2 new ones, and it falls within those parameters, we have something to kind of base that on, because we're not here day to day. We don't understand what's going on to that level. So if you provide that to us, I think then we have the ability to kind of always refer back to it. And as that changes, by all means, come back with a new report. But I think that gives us the opportunity to kind of understand why and how we're voting for this.
Yeah, to that point, could we maybe push the vote to receive that report? So we have a better understanding and we're educated, at least I would like to see that, even if it's 1 more month, just to see what that list of vehicles is, how much maintenance is on each one, what we're using it daily for, to make a better educated decision on it.
Yeah, I would like not to, but that's up to you as a board.
Yeah, listen, I don't mind voting for it tonight. I really don't, but I think the answer to the question is absolutely paramount that we understand that. You know, I know we're under vehicles, right? I absolutely know it. I know that from my experience in the city. But again, I think we should know why and how and all the particulars every time we're asked for something like a vehicle, because I think that's important. And then we can shift our fleet to what we absolutely need and, you know, diversify that as we need to. So I don't mind voting on it tonight. Like I said, I think moving it forward is fine, but I still think that
I think it's important what you're
if we don't get that,
for,
it's going to be
that in the future, and as you said, and you also stated, we're going to need more vehicles, right? We need a whole fleet. So maybe getting that information to us will make it easier for the next time. But I can definitely tell you, because I see it, how difficult it is for our maintenance. And our biggest complaints are our residents not getting the stuff done. And sometimes you wonder why they're not getting done. If we're not providing them the tools they need to get the work done, then you know what? Then shame on us. It's not shame on them.
Madam Chair, I think that it's great, and that's why we have these meetings, and that's why we're here for the oversight. But I think in general, we have to be very careful. This is important, and I agree with the report, 100%, I'm behind you. But if I'm looking back, and I'm a manager in my own job, and I'm saying, oh God, everybody's trying to do different things. We are all here understaffed. They are working at 3 in the morning. I could call them at 3 in the morning, they're here. So I think we have to try to work with, we have to do our job. You're doing your job. I commend you, thank you. I think you're doing, that's right, I agree with you, but I think we also have to just make sure that we are giving them time to do everything that we all need to do, so it's a balance, because we're here to balance each other. We're here, and everybody's agreeing with me, we're all here to balance each other, to do what's right for everybody.
You know, the only thing I'm saying is that in my world, I can't find out right now that we have no cups. It's not gonna happen. I gotta feed 150 people. You're telling me now we have no cups. That's a big problem. So all I'm saying is moving forward, keep us abreast of what's going on instead of saying, we need a new truck, here it is. This is the first time I'm hearing about any vehicle going down. That's all I'm saying. So, you know, I'm ready to vote on it too. I understand you need the things you need to get the job done. But for me, and in my world, telling me when you need it now is too late. You know, that's all I'm saying. So I'm good with a vote.
Commissioner Forbes, just to reiterate on what you just said, I know that it's probably the first time you've heard it, but me sitting on this board and sitting in the public there, I can tell you that we've heard it a lot of times. And a lot of times it has been, you know, unfortunately, it wasn't given to them. So we're not giving them the proper tools to do their job. You understand it?
No, I totally understand.
So I understand where you're coming from, but yeah. But I think we're not waiting for the last minute. Am I correct? You're doing it now because we know we're going to need it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, this one, can you call the vote?
I can. A. Forbes?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
No.
A. Lewitt? B. Reyes?
Yes.
M. Russo?
Aye.
J. Sanford?
Yes.
E. Seitzman?
Yes. Resolution number 2023-0304, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to award a contract for landscaping services.
Motion.
Second. Questions, concerns? Call the vote. Director, call the vote.
A. Forbes?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt? B. Reyes?
Yes.
M. Russo?
Aye.
J. Sanford?
No.
E. Seitzman?
Resolution number 2023-0305, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to award contract for legal services.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, concerns?
So can you just, because people want, for the public record, sir, and you just give a very brief overview, brief as in brief.
Sure, this is our services for our general legal counsel, which is the legal services that covers this board meeting, contracts, procurement issues, covers labor issues with us. It's our general counsel that we can turn to for questions on general legal matters.
Perfect. Thank you.
Call the vote.
A. Forbes?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt? B. Reyes?
Yes.
M. Russo?
Aye.
J. Sanford?
What's this resolution?
The general legal services, Commissioner.
And who is it being awarded to?
The
Fitzpatrick and Waterman?
and Waterman.
Yes.
And E. Seitzman, did I
Yes.
say that? Yes, okay, sorry. Sorry.
Resolution number 2023-0306, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to award contract for legal services litigation.
Motion.
Second.
Director, you wanna?
And this is a contract we use for special legal services, such as should we have a major lawsuit come in or a special issue that we've got to deal with that wouldn't fall under the general legal counsel. It is a counsel that we can turn to for special legal advice on things like lawsuits and or maybe an insurance issue.
Call the vote.
A. Forbes?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt? B. Reyes?
Yes.
M. Russo?
Aye.
J. Sanford?
Yes.
E. Seitzman?
Yes. A resolution number 2023-0307, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to award a contract for security consulting services.
Motion.
Second. Questions, concerns? Call the vote.
A. Forbes?
Yes.
A. Impastato?
Yes.
A. Lewitt? B. Reyes?
Yes.
M. Russo?
Aye.
Jay Sanford,
No.
E. Seitzman.
Yes.
Resolution number 2023-0308, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to reopen the public housing waiting list for 0-bedroom and 1-bedroom units.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, concerns? Call the vote.
A. Forbes.
Yes.
A. Impastato.
Yes.
A. Lewitt. B. Reyes.
Yes.
M. Russo.
Aye.
J. Sanford.
No.
E. Seitzman.
Yes. Resolution number 2023-0310, a resolution of the housing.
Nine.
Listen, I want to go.
I know.
A resolution of the, okay, resolution number 2023-0309, a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to reopen its Housing Choice Voucher Program wait list for 0-bedroom and 1-bedroom units with respect to project-based vouchers at Fox Hill Gardens.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, concerns?
A. Forbes.
Yes.
A. Impastato.
Yes.
A. Lewitt. B. Reyes.
Yes.
M. Russo.
Aye.
J. Sanford.
No.
E. Seitzman.
Yes. Resolution number 2023-0310, resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Hoboken to award contracts for residential service programs providers.
Motion.
Second.
Questions, concerns?
So what, the 8 proposals were received and then the bottom list is what got approved?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the part that says Hive and Zog are for-profit corporations?
That's correct.
So they're
So they, why would they apply it?
You have to ask them. Because the RFP was very clear that it was soliciting nonprofit organizations.
Yep.
And Hive Athletic did not have their nonprofit documentation in order. It wasn't there. It's not there. We understand they did an application, but it's not there.
So that's why it wasn't.
That's correct.
That's sad because they had a very good proposal. And
Yeah, they
They were
did.
very beneficial to the residents of the housing authority.
Yeah.
So that kind of,
Anything
I
you'd
was
like?
not able to.
Yeah. And it was not curable. Anything you want to add, Counselor?
No, that's correct. This RFP is open to either government entities or New Jersey nonprofit corporations, and either of those entities fits either of those categories. So as far as I'm concerned, they're non-responsive to the RFP.
Sure, and it was frustrating, may I, Madam Chair? Thank you. So it was actually very frustrating as the chair of the committee, because we know that they're doing good work and we know they want to participate with us, except our hands are tied because of the legalities. And the only thing that I was trying to come up with, and I was asking the director, and I think talking about with Rev Forbes, if we got money, we are trying to get more money. We're trying to get the $4,000 from not from Grace Church or somebody else to come here and give money to, instead of them coming here, give money to them to run the programs for our kids. So it's really, and you're in like a crappy, part of my language, situation here, because our hands are tied. And if anybody has any other suggestions or ways to do it, or we're all ears. And we start, so we want to be able to have more programming. Number one is for our children.
Can you give
Things
me
like
an
that.
idea of what each one is going to be offering?
Could I just ask a question
I'm saying
on?
the ones that we approved. Just curious, like what, I know Amazing Truth is the karate, right?
Yep.
Right, correct.
Boys and Girls Club, what are they doing? What are they getting money for?
They do leadership development, mentorship, and they also do some education fields.
Community Lifestyle, obviously, we know the great work they do. Hopes, we know Hopes. Team Wilderness is what you talked about earlier.
Correct. And True Mentors.
True Mentors.
We know them very well.
Can I ask a question? In the city, when we talk about like partnering with people specific to the use of our facilities, if it's a city-run event, that would then qualify. So if we partnered with a group, let's just use Hive as the example, then they would take that precedent. Is there a mechanism for us to do some type of partnership where they still have the ability to provide the services for our residents aside and different from what we're doing with this resolution?
Yes.
Okay.
If I understand your question, what this resolution essentially does is two things. It gives the $2,500 to the people that apply for $2,500.
Right.
So you're approving that. The second thing is these organizations that applied tonight, the times that they want to reserve our facilities, they will now get priority. They're our first. Now, if somebody comes in next month and says, or next week, we've got a great program, we want to come onto your site, we're not asking for money, but we want to use your community room from these hours to these hours, these programs don't have it, we're going to welcome them with open arms.
Right.
If that's your question.
Right, it is my question.
Yes.
And the secondary question to that is if they are funded outside, so if they're going to come into our community to do something, and there's a secondary funding source to help them along the way, do they have the ability to do that, or do we prohibit them? And I guess this is a legal question, Matt, to say, again, if we're talking about Hive here, they come in, they're going to provide services for us, but they got a sponsorship from someone else, the city or a local store or whatever it is. Do they still have the ability to accept that sponsorship, or would we prohibit them from doing that?
No, we would not prohibit them from doing that.
It's up to you to decide. If you wanted to prohibit them, you could, but you wouldn't be required to prohibit them.
This is nonprofit stuff for our youth, correct?
Yes.
Right.
So walk me through an example of what you're talking about.
So if there's a for-profit company that still wants to be helpful to our housing authority and the residents, we will allow them to come on site and do that. And if they find funding sources to pay their staff for that day, for example, that's their issue. That's on them. We're not going to prohibit them from soliciting to try to get those monies from a private organization or other public organizations. That's what I was asking.
If I may chime on that.
But for the kids.
For the kids, yeah. It would be as if they were not receiving any money from us. Right. They're coming in, they're volunteering their time, but they're finding their own funding source, in other words.
Absolutely.
Could I have one more thing, Madam Chair?
Sure. Matt?
One other thing to point out is, while these two organizations did have very strong proposals, they proposed to provide a number of services to housing authority residents. There's also a component to each of them that involves essentially running their profit-making business on authority property, what amounts to what we've normally done as a concession for the use of the field, which is a separate process that the housing authority has chosen to engage in, an RFP process at various times. But right now, the housing authority did not request that. But essentially, they proposed to use the field for commercial purposes for non-authority residents, and to then turn around and use a portion of those proceeds to benefit the authority. So that's where it gets kind of tricky. Yes, they're trying to benefit authority residents, but they're also using it as their own profit-making enterprise.
Yeah, that's a completely different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the nonprofits are their mission is to help the youth and activate the youth. Why we set this up originally was we're going to help them. We're going to fund them with seed money to help activate our youth. If an organization comes in and part of their business is to make money, but also part of it is to give back, great, but these companies are giving back without making money. So we should not be allowing that at all.
It's two separate RFPs.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we shouldn't allow it. I'm not saying we shouldn't allow it, because if
they're gonna pay,
if it helps our residents, that's absolutely what we want. It doesn't matter. Like, to me, listen, if they're gonna use our field, they're gonna make money. They're not saying we're gonna make money and we're gonna take it elsewhere, we're gonna do whatever we want. They're saying we're gonna make money and we're gonna put it back into your community. So my kids will be able to participate in things that we can't provide for them.
Yeah.
So they're willing to give us that money that they're making, they're giving it back to us so that we can provide those services.
And I-
It
and I
really
think-
gets to the level of what that looks
And I
like.
think, Madam Chair, I think there's two components to that. First, you have the sponsorship of events and programs that they're committing to provide for the contract year, right? And additionally, the rental fee that the Housing Authority would charge for the use of the Mama Johnson Field. But at this point, we just don't have enough time to be able to provide, you know, that. Now, if the city of Hoboken, which has done in the past, based on the schedule of time that they have submitted to the Housing Authority, they have, I don't know, an available Thursday night, then they can provide it to these for-profit organizations, right? The rental will come into the Housing Authority, so the Housing Authority will also be benefited from that. But that will have to be up to the city's time.
Well, that's, right, and that's
Do
a
we
different
have
conversation.
Yeah, do we have
Understood.
a schedule for the city? Because
Yeah, thankfully,
I know this.
we received a schedule, sorry, excuse me for interrupting, we received a schedule from Jessica Lascano, and that's the schedule that we're gonna be using now moving forward to be able to provide and allot time for our nonprofit organizations. Now, any time that the city is using the field, you know, the city has it in their schedule, and they would like to provide that for for-profit use, then at that point, the Housing Authority can benefit for the rental, and of course, use that money for nonprofit organizations or nonprofit programs.
What I kind of want to also talk upon, since we're talking about the field and all of that, is the city sometimes asks for the field, right? They want to do football, for instance. My child was a part of the program. My understanding was it was supposed to happen on the Housing Authority property, right? On the field.
Yeah.
What happens? They decided to move it to JFK Stadium, right? So now our kids got to go to 9th Street when we have a field here because of certain situations that were happening, and now the field is not being used, and it's left empty, right? Now the next question, and you know you brought this up at the city council, we are obligated to keep it open at all times, right? That's the next thing. So I think we also, I get that they send a schedule, but we have to make sure that if they are asking for that schedule, that they are adhering to provide the services at the location and not off the location. I get it, sometimes you may have to move it. I'm not saying, but when you're consistently moving it because for other reasons, and now it doesn't become a Housing Authority program anymore, or a program that is supposed to be down here, they're moving it. That's not fair to individuals like them who we could provide that slot to them, and they're willing to give us back for our kids and maybe sponsor something that we want to do with our kids.
But this, Barbara, I'm 500% with you. This RFP, we would have to, we have to do something else because we cannot legally do that within this RFP.
No, I agree with you, and
I'm
that's why I was asking
I'm
the
not
question.
against it, like, I'm not against it, and we were sitting here trying all different ways, how could we possibly do that? And I even suggested, we did a grant, we give them money to do it. I mean, I hate to say it, because we're having a problem finding people to get on the field. So the most frustrating thing for me was saying, here we have a group who wants to come on the field and give back, but right now we're legally tied. Can we even go to the city and say, look, we want to have these people come here because they are going to give back, we trust them, we know them. Would you give them some time? Because right now, we can't. To me is some sort of compromise or an option? Or because if we have to do another RFP or whatever, I don't know the legalities, but that takes time, and then they can't plan for their things. So that's the problem we're into. We're running into our problems with ourselves because we can't just make things happen.
True, and now my city council hat is far off, right?
Yep.
And you may actually hear me advocate against myself at some point from the city's perspective. However, I think in the planning of our repositioning, I think we should really consider making sure that the rebuilding of our field is maintained and funded solely by this authority, so that we don't run into some of these problems when it comes to scheduling. Now, as a city council person, I will probably say the exact opposite because I do wear two different hats. However, I think that is something that we should really consider because we do run into a lot of these problems we as an authority are supposed to have that field open when it is not in use. Right?
How do we do that?
For not just our residents.
Any residents.
Residents of the city of Hoboken.
So anybody can go on the field and play
Correct.
football or.
Correct. So that is something that I think we will be in direct odds with the city at some point to really have that conversation because of the way it was funded and the way it was rebuilt.
And unfortunately, we can't hold their feet to the fire because it's just not
Correct.
like what we could do. We
Can
should find them.
can we recommend, here's a situation like this where we could work together. Can we recommend and say, highly recommend that we explain the situation and say that's, to us, a fair compromise because we want the services, we can't get it in this way.
Yeah.
And maybe they have been very collaborative with us. Maybe they will to work with us and do that.
So I think there's I think from their perspective, right, there's two sides of this conversation. There's their ability to use field space is one conversation.
Yes.
And then the ability that they are going to provide a service for our residents is a different conversation. Right. And I think we need to be able to separate the two of those, right?
It should be a pretty quo.
Yeah, right. We can't, you know,
It has to be a fair
the two
process for
should never
anybody who
mix,
wants
right?
to open it. Because, look, at the end of the day, it's very valuable field space.
It is.
And you have tons of organizations for profit that want to use it and rent it.
Yep.
For the benefit of their companies. And Commissioner Romano is constantly asking for the softball, right? The rental for the softball.
But didn't we used to have an RFP or RFP
Yes.
for that? So can we go back to have that too, have two? But we have to prioritize the residents. So you're
Right.
sitting here.
That's right. And we don't have
All right,
time.
I got everybody told,
You're
If
sitting
I
here
can I add
in a
one thing?
hard situation because number one for me is the residents. You know that. I'm going to tell you until my
Absolutely.
last breath. So I'm
All of us.
right.
It's not
That's
just
it.
you.
Right.
why we're here.
So that's it. But at the same time, it's really frustrating when the field is not open and you have people like the Hive who can meet that criteria. So it's extremely frustrating when basically your hands are tied.
And they're not saying that our residents couldn't play with their leagues and so forth. So, I don't know, it's just.
It's hard. It's a very.
Can I add one thing, Madam Chair?
I think our counselor wants to weigh in.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. So what I said before was in no way to pass any judgment on any other organization that is looking to provide services in any way to the authority. In this particular case, Hive Athletic or Hive Sports or anyone else. It's just that the authority made the policy decision to limit this to not-for-profits or New Jersey government entities. So essentially, anybody who proposes and is awarded under this has to fit within those four corners. That doesn't mean that you couldn't, as you've done in the past, open this up to for-profit entities depending upon availability of the field. You could always do that. That's just a separate RFP process. And yes, it will take a little bit of time, as the commissioner alluded to. It would have to go out, and then you'd consider it. It's probably a month to 2 month process. But you could do that if you wanted to. It's just that the authority made the policy decision the past 2 years, I believe it is, not to do that.
Can you do half and half? If we do the RFP, are we tied to it?
So I have a question.
So if we do the RFP and then we do the city, then we don't have the time, do we have to vote on it? What's the word I'm looking for?
So if somebody proposed saying it's all or nothing, we are requesting this amount of time and the authority can't provide that, you wouldn't have to award anything. But more than likely, if you did put out the RFP and somebody proposed and they were looking for more time than the authority was willing to provide, I would imagine there would be some sort of discussion to figure out what the middle ground was and how the field could be utilized. And you'd be open to do that.
Got it, thank you.
So I have a question. Sorry, Director.
No, keep on.
What is the schedule that the Housing Authority has? What entities and what times is the Housing Authority, us, right? And these people
Right, understood. So what we
using
do,
the field?
so what we do next, once we've approved these people, what we do next is we get them together. And we say, who needs to use the field at what time? Then we work out that schedule with them. And if somebody.
So that's not proposed in their,
No. Well, they make that proposal, but we don't guarantee it. Because at this point, we just got the city schedule in, and we didn't
insert the city's schedule into our RFP. That was impossible to do. So we wait and we just got the city's schedule. So now we go back to and I think there's only one of these that wanted to use the field, by the way. And we go back to them and say, okay, when do you want to use the field? The city's not using it. Great, we'll allow you to use the field. You're now cemented in for this time, for the future, all right? Now, after that process, if we have extra time that's ours, that we haven't given anybody, now we look to other programs that want to walk in the door that we could possibly give it to, such as the Hive. Now, I want to be clear on this because, from